A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Jerry of the Circus. For Jerry of the Circus.
Ice cold lemonade, step right up, folks.
Well, Sam, this is a funny place to find you.
Yeah. Here you are, Mr. Randall, the best lemonade in the world.
Thanks, Max. Have a glass, Bumps?
Not a bad idea. Thanks, I will.
All right, another one for Bumps, Max.
Hey, coming right up, sir.
It's a scorcher today. About the hottest day we've had all season.
For which I'm duly grateful. Nothing to make circus business pick up like this weather.
This lemonade certainly hits the spot. Ought to do a good business this afternoon, Max.
You bet. Ain't done bad so far, and the sideshows ain't open yet.
Yeah, looks like we'll pack 'em in this afternoon.
Certainly wish we could have had a streak like this last week. Would have saved me a lot of trouble as well as money.
Well, I don't want to butt in, Sam, but I hear you're going to have to get that note renewed at the bank.
I'm afraid so. 1 week like this, and I could have been in the clear.
Well, I certainly wish I had enough money to tide you over.
Oh,
You're welcome to my little nest egg, but I'm afraid it wouldn't cover your expenses.
Well, now, Bumps, that's mighty fine of you. I appreciate your offer more than you know.
It wouldn't do you any good. You just say the word, Sam.
Well, thanks, Bumps. Well, I'm heading for the office wagon. You going that way?
May as well. I'm just killing time till the show.
Thanks for your offer, Bumps. I think I'll just have to get the money through the regular channels.
Oh, it's a shame that cyclone had to hit us when it did.
Pity it had to hit us at all.
Yeah. Oh, Jerry tells me there's something doing with that Montana Railroad.
Yeah, I should hear from them today. We got a long night letter off to them last night.
Any idea what it's all about and how it concerns Jerry?
Something to do with that ranch in Montana that Tim left him.
Oh, I don't see the connection.
Well, whatever it is, it seems to be urgent from the tone of the wires we've been getting.
I hope whatever it is, it'll be good for Jerry. It'd be a pity if he were to get into litigation with a big railroad company.
Yeah, well, until we hear, we might as well hope it's good and not bad news for the boy.
Yeah. Well, here's your office wagon. Yes, I'll leave you here. Oh, thanks for the lemonade.
Oh, don't mention it. I haven't seen you, Bumps.
Hot dogs, all right, get a hot dog. The hot, hot dog.
Looks like the sideshow will be open soon. Oh, hello there, Joe.
Hi, Bumps.
Oh, you seen Jerry?
Yeah, back at the sideshow. Major shooting his mouth off about something, and he and Patsy are trying to make him pipe down.
You don't say. Guess I better check on that. I'm pretty good at handling that midget. Well, it sounds like Greg. Here, Rags. Here, Rags. Well, old fellow, what's wrong?
Don't interrupt me, young man. If I want to be good and mad, there's no use trying to stop me.
But please, Major, for my sake.
Oh, now, don't try any of your woman's wiles on me, young lady. I won't have it.
Hello there, Major. Well, Jerry, I brought your dog back, and... Oh, Patsy, how lovely you look.
Thank you, Bunch.
Well, what's going on here? I could hear your voices way over at the Midway.
Oh, plenty, Bumps, just plenty. When I think of it, it makes my blood boil. That's what it does.
Oh, that's bad, Major. That must be worse than high blood pressure.
Now, I'll thank you not to be making fun of me, Bumps.
Oh, I'm not. Indeed, I'm not, Major. I was just kidding.
Yes, well, let me tell you, there's been entirely too much kidding going on around here.
Gee, Bumps, it's all my fault. Really, it is.
Well, I'm glad to hear you admit it.
Gee, we didn't mean to do anything really wrong, but you see, it was like this, Major.
To take the most personal feelings of a friend and to make light of them. What do you think of that, Bumps?
Well, let's have it, Jerry.
Well, you see, the other day Speed played a joke on Riggs and me.
He did? It serves you right. That's what it does.
Well, you know, he's marvelous at imitation, and he's a wonder as a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
You know, making his voice come from strange places.
I never heard of such nerve.
You see, he began meowing like a cat, letting it come from first one place and then another. He had poor Rags running from one part of the lot to another, and Jim Bennett and me were just as upset as Rags.
So you fell for it, huh? Well, now, that was a pretty cute trick, that was.
Gee, Rags was going crazy barking, and, well, anyhow, when it was over, we...
Pretty cute trick, I'd say.
I began trying to think of someone else to fool, you know.
So you thought of me. And just think, Bumps, if I hadn't been clever enough to think of Rosa Ruzzi, I might have...
Gee whiz, we weren't going to let you really go to Parker City. Honest, we weren't.
Well, I may be a little dumb, but I still don't know what happened.
What happened? What happened? Why, that young scamp and his ventriloquist friend pretended to be my grandfather, Gustav. That's what happened.
Major, I'm awful sorry that we played that joke on you. I really didn't think, well, how it might be pretty serious with you until...
Yeah, pretty serious. Well, I can just tell you it was serious with me, mighty serious. Why, do you realize I might have gone all the way to Parker City and found that plot of ground was already covered with houses? But fortunately, I had presence of mind to go to Rosa Ruzzi, and she told me it was all a hoax.
Oh, hey, Major, the sideshow's opening.
Yes, so I must get to work. But let me tell you, young man, no more stunts like that.
You better hurry, Major. You mustn't disappoint your public, you know.
That's right, Patsy. My public must never be disappointed. And let me tell you, Major Mike will never let his fans down. No, sirree. No, sirree.
Well, the Major on a rampage again. He certainly took it seriously, didn't he?
Yeah, just like he takes everything pertaining to himself seriously.
What's the matter, Jerry? You've got the longest face I've ever seen on a boy.
Oh, nothing.
Oh, come on now. Tell Bumps and me. We're your pals, aren't we?
Yeah, but... Well, all right, then. I'm just pretty sore at myself, that's all.
Oh, but why? Now, what have you done to be sore at yourself?
Playing a joke like that on a little fella like Major Mida. I just didn't realize it would mean so much to him.
Oh, well, Jerry, I wouldn't worry any more about it. After all, circus folks are good sports.
Yes, but I think Jerry's right. We do play a lot. We have fun among ourselves, our little jokes and such. We enjoy seeing the audiences thrilled and entertained. We clowns like more than anything else in life to see an audience holding their sides with laughter. But then, after all, we're all human, and we have our sober natures as well.
My goodness, you sound serious.
I feel serious.
Why?
What's wrong, Bumps?
It's Mr. Randall. He's certainly having to take it on the chin these days.
What do you mean?
Well, you know, he had to borrow a lot of money after the circus was wrecked last month.
Sure, but I thought everything was all right now.
Sam Randall's not one to complain.
But what's happened?
But it seems he can't meet the note because of the strike and a few unexpected bad days.
Oh, that's a shame, Bumps.
I'll say. Gee whiz, I sure wish there was something I could do.
Well, I told him he could have all I've got, but of course it'd only be a drop in the bucket.
Well, how much does Mr. Randall need?
Oh, I'd say around $15,000-$20,000.
Gee, money, that's fierce.
Yeah, pretty tough on him. Oh, and he's such a grand person. I certainly hate to see him go through this. It costs a fortune to borrow that much. What's that, Sue? What's wrong?
Oh, what?
What happened?
I'm sorry. I guess I was just thinking of something.
Oh, well, you certainly go into a coma when you think, Patsy.
Oh, I guess that's because I don't think very often.
Lovely Patsy. How are you today?
All right, thank you, Boris.
Well, this is what I'd call a very fortunate occurrence to find you all here so
Oh,
well.
will you excuse me, please? I thought of something. I have to dress first, but I must see Mr. Randall right after the matinee.
Well, yeah, sure. That's all right, Patsy.
Jerry, would you mind asking Mr. Randall to see me right after the afternoon show?
Why, of course not, Patsy.
Goodbye, then.
Yeah. Well, that's funny.
Did I upset Patsy?
I don't think so. Only I wonder why she left so suddenly.
Gee, I never saw her so funny. She must have something on her mind, all right.
Well, I would dislike so much to have said anything. Did I interrupt something?
Why, of course not, Boris. We were just talking about Mr. Randall's bad luck and...
Bad luck? Has something happened?
Yes, Boris, it has. You see, it's like this. Now, since the sight, Mr. Randall...
Hurry and get to Mr. Randall first.
What makes you think Patsy would be offering him her money?
I don't think, but I am good at hunches. It would be just like her.
But when she had the chance to double her money, or thought she did, she refused.
But of course, dear sister. Do you not see that for herself she might not take risks, even at great profits? But for a friend she might be very foolish.
I believe you understand women better than I, Boris.
Of course I do. So, for the sake of the little lady, I must see that Mr. Randall accepts a good business proposition.
And what would you consider a good business proposition, my fine brother?
Something that might turn to our advantage, my sister.
Oh?
What would you say if we offered our savings and have him put up his entire menagerie as security?
But the menagerie... All his animals are worth much more than...
Of course. You do not think a man puts up a security that is less in value than the money. That is not good business.
And you think you might get his animals?
It is possible. Anything is possible.
But I do not see how. Mr. Randall is certainly good for the money.
Yes, of course.
By the end of the season, he will surely have much more than enough to pay it back.
Perhaps. But many things can happen. And think, my Olga, with a menagerie, our horses, and a few star turns, we would have a ready-made circus.
But the tents and trappings...
I do not think of that. Who would have thought we could have gathered together such fine animals as Mr. Randall owns?
We have not got them yet.
No, we haven't, but all in good time.
I should hate for you to get into trouble, Boris. What would the rest of the Russovs do without you to lead them?
Badly, very badly, I'm sure. But never fear. I have weathered worse storms before. I can handle this. Do not fear.
But do you think Mr. Randall will accept your proposition?
I do. He will not think it is a risk. He knows that if he has to, he can always borrow enough money to pay me back.
You do not make sense, Boris. How then will you get control of his menagerie?
That is easy. I know a very clever lawyer. Very clever.
So, what difference does that make?
Much difference. A friendly little note I will sign with Mr. Randall. But there will be a sentence in there that he will not notice. You'll see.
You forget Mr. Randall is a keen businessman.
Yes, but he trusts us. So far. And he will never think I've gotten secretly a clever lawyer to word our friendly agreement. And now I must go and see Jim Bennett.
Bennett? I thought you wanted to see Mr. Randall.
Yes. But this business I must do first with Bennett.
Why? Especially when you are in a hurry.
Olga, sometimes I think you are stupid. Jim and I always got along fine. He is Mr. Randall's right-hand man.
I see.
Then if I convince him as a friend and he takes the proposition to Mr. Randall, it is simple. And it does not look as if I am too anxious. Now, where is my tie?
Here you are, Boris.
No, not the black one, the red one. This is a day for celebrating, not for mourning.
Ah, yes, it is more cheerful.
I am a cheerful friend. A friend in need. You understand, Olga?
Yes, I see. Good luck, Boris.
And good luck we shall have. And good fortune, too. You will see.
one man was in trouble and 3 were trying to help him. But after I found 2 pounds of tobacco, 2 pieces of brass, and a boat without a pilot heading straight out to sea, I knew they had all been in trouble, and all had taken the hard way out.
From the pen of Raymond Chandler, outstanding author of crime fiction, comes his most famous character as CBS presents The Adventures of Philip Marlowe. And now, with Gerald Moore, starred as Philip Marlowe, we bring you tonight's exciting story, The Hard Way Out.
Killed a shank of the afternoon in a Hollywood department store, trying for the 5th consecutive year to select something unique in a personalized Christmas card. A bright-eyed salesgirl finally suggested in desperation a smoking 38, spelling out Noel in delicate wisps of white curling smoke. Well, I gave up, settled for a reissue of last year's unoriginal message. An hour later, I was driving out towards Sepulveda and my new client, August Quigg. And I was glad to be away from the pre-holiday crowds and back to work. When I pulled up in front of the factory building, an immodest sign told me the man I was to meet inside was president and co-founder of Quigg & Slater, manufacturers of nothing but the best in construction materials.
Come in. Be with you in a minute. I'm on the phone. Listen, August Quigg does not change his policy overnight, Slater. Not after 25 years. You should know that, you of all people. Never mind the excuses, Slater. Those you always have, and they make me sick.
Partnership trouble, Mr. Quigg?
Oh, no, my partner is dead now 10 years. That was his son, Keith Slater. But he has nothing to say here. His father left it that way. Well, sit down, Mr. Marlowe, please. Slater is not what I want to talk to you about.
All right, Mr. Quigg, who is the man and what's his problem?
My general manager, Frank Emery.
No?
He has embezzled $60,000 of this company's money in the last year.
Then isn't this a great time for you to climb the nearest rooftop and scream copper?
No, because I want to save Frank Emery, not condemn him.
Why? What's so special about a general manager who keeps dipping itchy fingers into the till?
Mr. Marlowe, Frank Emery has worked for me for 7 years. And in that time, he has climbed from shop worker to plant foreman to general manager. And that is something which took me 15 years.
Which proves what?
That Frank can one day go right to the top. Here, to my job. The honest way. And that is just the path he was on until a year ago when he got married.
Oh. Then he started to fill his pockets with company lettuce before he'd even gotten rid of the rice, is that it?
Yes, but don't leap to any conclusions, Mr. Marlowe. Because his wife, Sheila, is a very sweet woman. Everybody knows that. And if anything, she should be a good influence.
Mr. Quigg, what's Frank Emery's salary?
$175 a week.
Oh. When'd you last see him?
This afternoon, about 2 o'clock. I called him in here. But I didn't say anything about the shortage. We just talked. I asked him if he thought he needed a vacation. He only sulked. He said he'd be all right in a little while. Then he left. But when he got back to his desk, he only stopped there long enough to pick up his hat. That was 3 hours ago.
You've called his house since?
Twice, but I got no answer. Here's the number, Marlowe, and the address. Now we better stop talking, start moving. I must know what Frank Emery plans to do. Yeah, this is my private number.
Oh.
Plan to close in half an hour, but I'll be here working late.
Okay. But before I get going, Mr. Quigg, one more question. Just so all this will make some sense to me. Were you ever in a jam like this yourself? A long time ago, maybe? And you know what it's like to be in Emery's shoes?
A pretty alert fellow, Mr. Marlowe. I do seem to remember a rich man who once kept me out of a lot of trouble. But the details aren't very clear anymore, so good night and good luck.
Hello?
Mr. Frank Emery, please.
I'm sorry, he's not in. Is this Philip Marlowe?
Yeah, that's right. That should make you Sheila Emery, huh?
Yes, I just finished speaking to August Quigg at the plant, Mr. Marlowe. He told me about you. And about Frank.
Take it easy, Mrs. Emery. Crying isn't going to help Frank any.
Yes, I know. But how can I help Frank? What can I do?
I'm not sure, but look, can you meet me right away? I'm at the Golden Crown. It's a cocktail lounge on Santa Monica Boulevard near Bradley.
Yes, of course, Mr. Marlowe. I'll be there as soon as possible.
exactly 34 minutes later, a two-tone, sleek convertible about the size of a Pullman car glided to a stop in front of the Golden Crown. The loveliness behind the wheel was wearing a $100 hand-knit dress that just wouldn't let go. I knew it couldn't be Sheila Emery, but it was. She was a tall, luscious blonde with blue-gray eyes that were set wide apart and a face that any angel would have gladly traded his wings for. Now, 5 minutes later, we were seated inside at a quiet corner booth.
But only 2 weeks ago, everything was perfect, Mr. Marlowe. Frank didn't seem to have a care in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, he changed. He became quiet, almost morose.
You never suspected that he was stealing from Quig?
Of course not. And I still think there's some explanation, something we don't know about.
Maybe. But from where I sit, it looks like you two have been keeping up with the Vanderbilts instead of the Joneses. It always danced the bank account.
Just what do you mean by that, Mr. Marlowe?
Exhibit A, that knit 1 Pearl 2 number you're wearing.
What?
Exhibit B, that splash of automobile you drove up in.
But Frank said we could afford those things. I know because I was worried when we bought the boat.
Yeah, what boat?
The Carefree. It's a 30-foot sailboat. We dock it near our cottage just beyond Santa Monica.
Hey, wait a minute. A sailboat, a cottage at the beach, that car? Just how far do you think $175 will stretch these days?
What do you mean? Frank makes twice that, plus bonuses.
Not unless he has a very fancy paper route on the side. Because 175, period, is the figure that Quig quoted to me an hour ago.
Oh, no. No, I can't believe that. Frank wouldn't lie to me that way.
Yeah, some guys do funny things when they're too much in love. Oh, now, look, tears take time, honey. How about holding him back long enough to give me some dope that'll put me on Frank's trail, huh? I mean, names and numbers, his clubs, his friends, anything that'll give me a line.
Yes, of course. But all that information is in his address book at home.
All right. Home's our next stop. Just between us, Sheila. What are the chances that Frank has an extracurricular interest on a back street somewhere?
Another woman? Oh, no, I'm sure that's not the way things are. Frank loves me very much.
Yeah, I guess so. Believe me, if he doesn't, we're not looking for an embezzler. We're after a maniac. Come on, let's get out of here. When we left the Golden Crown, Sheila was still crying and in no shape to drive. So after parking my coupe in a nearby lot, we floated out to the Emery place in Brentwood in a two-tone Nash, which did everything at the push of a button except dry a girl's tears. At her house, Sheila pulled herself together long enough to give me a handful of addresses that might possibly lead to Frank Emery. But just as I was about to leave, I noticed a single phone number scribbled in pencil on the edge of a desk blotter. It was Crenshaw 22131. And since Sheila couldn't explain it, I wrote it down on a slip of paper and filed it in my pocket and left. But once outside, I remembered that my car was still on Santa Monica Boulevard at the Golden Crown. So I started back to the house to call a cab. I stopped suddenly at the sound of somebody in the shadows alongside the house. When I moved toward the noise, a man darted out between two trees, and I went after him. Get your hands off. Why? So we can play another round of hide and seek? No dice, brother. I'm getting too old for it. Now, who are you? What are you doing around the Emery place? Come on, let's have it.
Say, wait a minute. Aren't you Marlowe? The man August Quig hired?
That's right. You still haven't answered my question.
Oh, no, but I will now that I know who you are. I'm Keith Slater. Surely dear Quig must have told you of me, the wastrel son of his late partner.
He did, but you're still parrying, Slater. Why were you hiding behind those trees?
Correction, Marlowe. I wasn't hiding. I was waiting for Frank Emery.
All right, we won't argue terms. Why were you waiting?
Because I want to get hold of Emery and help him before he goes too far. You see, Marlowe, he came back to the office after you left.
What? Did he talk to Quig?
No, the place had just closed and the old man was out for dinner.
Did you talk to Emery?
Yes, and it wasn't much fun. That poor fella's just about out of his mind, Marlowe. Well, he raved on for an hour and a half about how unfair Quig was. Said he knew that I was the one who'd get to run Quig and Slater after the old man died.
I don't follow that. When did you become the fair-haired boy around there?
Oh, I'm hardly that. But I do own a quarter of the plant, unless, of course, Quig fires me one day. Those are the terms of my father's will.
But Quig won't fire you, is that it?
He wouldn't think of it. After all, that would keep my dear father from resting easy in his grave.
Okay, let's skip it. Exactly what did Frank Emery tell you, Slater?
He said that August Quig was a two-faced liar and that he'd settle with him in his own way. I told Quig that when he got back from dinner. And I also reminded him that Frank had a key to the office.
That didn't faze Quig, did it?
No, he said he never worries twice. If Emery walked in on him, he'd think about what to do about it then. I tell you, Marlowe, we've got to get hold of Frank Emery and stop him before it's too late.
In just a moment, back to the adventures of Philip Marlowe. But first, just 1 hour from now, over most of these same CBS network stations, Eve Arden will be midway through her regular Sunday night role of Our Miss Brooks, America's most charming and most highly unusual school teacher. You've seen Eve Arden make her hilarious way through many a Hollywood movie. Now you can hear her every Sunday night as Our Miss Brooks, just a little later over most of these same CBS network stations. And now, with our star, Gerald Moore, we return to the second act of The Adventures of Philip Marlowe and tonight's story, The Hard Way Out.
It was nearly an hour later before I was back in my office on Cahuenga with my finger in the dial of the telephone, checking the names and places that Sheila Emery had given me. 2 nightclubs, 3 hotels, and 5 friends later, I'd run through the list without a single kosher lead. Sitting there thinking of all the places a guy could disappear to, I reached into my pocket for a lifesaver and found something else. The slip of paper that read Crenshaw 22131. The number I'd seen on the desk blotter at Emery's place. So, with nothing more to lose than another millimeter off the tip of my index finger, I went back to dialing.
Pipe and tobacco shop, sir. Newton talking.
Newton's what?
Pipe and tobacco shop, what can I do for you?
Not a thing, old-timer. My mistake. Pipe and tobacco shop. Marlowe speaking.
This is Sheila Emery, Marlowe. I think I know where Frank is.
You do?
Yes, at our cottage at the beach. It's closed up, but I was just going through some things in my desk when I discovered that the keys to the place were gone. And I clearly remember seeing them only yesterday.
What's the exact location of that cottage?
It's 2 miles north of Santa Monica and down on the beach, directly behind a large white frame house on the Pacific Coast Highway. Number 1221. You can't miss it.
1221. Okay, I'm leaving right now, and I'll call you as soon as I can, so try not to worry. Somehow or other, I made it straight out along Sunset to the beach and then north as far as the large white frame house without being tagged for low flying by any of the boys in blue. But when I got down to the cottage on the beach, I found it deserted and boarded up like opening night at an unlicensed peep show in Boston. Except for a couple of stray gulls who probably had insomnia, I was all alone. But the gregarious streak in me didn't suffer very long, because a minute later I had an unannounced visitor. It was a nasty caliber .45 automatic. And the man on the other end who gripped the handle like he knew what he was doing was none other than the general manager of Quig & Slater, Mr. Frank Emery.
Mind telling me who you are and what you want here?
Well, the name, which probably doesn't matter, Mr. Emery, is Philip Marlowe. But my business with you is something else. I'm working for your boss, August Quig, and believe it or not, he wants to help you.
That's a lie, Marlowe. Nobody wants to help me, and you know that. This is a smart trick, but it won't work. It can't work. And I'll tell you why. When the police do get to me, Marlowe, they won't find anything but a corpse. Is that clear?
Suicide. Don't be a fool. What about your wife?
Marlowe, that's why I took the $60,000. So say your breath. And unless you're interested in joining me, do exactly as I say. Now, here. Pick up these keys and open that door. Go on. Now, throw the keys back gently.
Please, Emery, listen to me.
No. I've listened to too many people already. Now it's my turn to talk. Well, all I'm going to say is goodbye in my own way.
You don't know what you're doing, Emery. Stop a minute. Think.
This isn't the time to think, Marlowe. This is the time to act. Now, get in.
Emery backed me into the cottage, stepped outside, and pulled the door shut. I waited a moment until I heard his car start. Then I tried the door and knew I was wasting my time. Emery had run a piece of pipe through the handle, and Gargantua himself couldn't have opened it from the inside. It took me 10 minutes to kick enough boards off one of the windows to wiggle out, and another 5 to get to a phone. When I told Sheila that her husband was on her way home in a very desperate frame of mind, she promised to hold him at all costs until I could get there. 20 minutes later, I was in Sheila's house on Bundy Drive.
Marlowe, what happened?
Where's your husband?
I don't know. He hasn't been here.
Oh, fine.
After you called me, I waited, but he didn't come back. Marlowe, What did you mean when you said Frank was desperate?
I'm afraid Frank intends to kill himself.
Kill himself? Oh, no, he
Now,
can't.
we still may be able to stop him. When he left the beach house, he was heading someplace to say goodbye. I figured for sure that meant you, but wherever he was going, he didn't want to be followed. He locked me in and... The gun. Holy smoke, where's your phone?
Right over there.
Oh.
Oh, what about a gun? Does Frank have one?
Yeah, 45. Didn't come here to make his last goodbyes. That only leaves August Quigg.
Do you know what you're saying?
Come on, answer that phone. No answer on Quigg's private wire.
You're accusing Frank of murder. He hates Mr. Quigg, yes, but I know he couldn't kill him. He couldn't.
Now, you listen to me. Your husband's cornered, and he's decided to blast his way out of a hopeless situation. I'm going to Quigg's office. If Frank comes back, try to keep him here. But don't try too hard, because it might be dangerous now, even for you. I drove down Sepulveda to the black, hulking plant of Quigg and Slater, pulled over, parked, and walked up the alley toward the side entrance. Through a barred window, I saw the feeble nightlight that glowed in the outer office. Otherwise, the place was dark. When I got to the door, I stopped. A diamond-shaped key stuck out of the lock, and the heavy door was ajar. I eased it open and listened. Nothing. I pulled the key out of the lock and dropped it in my pocket. And I went inside and switched on the lights. Oh, I found him on the floor next to the desk in his private office. He'd been shot in the chest point blank with a .45, which meant that even before he fell, August Quigg was dead. The room was untouched. Quigg's key case lay in the pencil tray on his desk. I snapped it open and saw what I expected. His diamond-shaped key. I switched off the lights and started out. When I heard heels clicking up the hallway, I backed up against the wall and waited. It was Keith Slater. He hesitated in the open door, a startled look on his face.
Good Lord.
Quigg. Hello, Slater.
Who is it?
Marlowe. I wouldn't touch anything if I were you. The police will want to see it just as it is.
Marlowe, he's been murdered. I had no idea Frank would go this far.
Yeah, he's full of surprises tonight. Are you sure he's not carrying any grudges against you?
Frank and I are old friends. That old man in there was different. He wasn't human. He was a machine, a rock crusher with a concrete heart. I'm only sorry it was Frank who did that to him because he'll never be able to get away with it.
He doesn't intend to. Plans to commit suicide any minute now. Tell me something straight, Slater. How does he feel about his wife? Is he jealous?
Jealous? Why, Marlowe, you don't think that he might kill Sheila? I'm going to call her right away.
Wait a minute. If Frank is there, a phone call would only hurry things. Come on, let's go.
I don't like the looks of this, Marlowe.
Neither do I.
Sheila? Frank? Anybody home? They're not here. Neither one of them.
Well, if they are, they're not talking.
Oh, you've got a macabre sense of humor.
Nobody's laughing, brother. Look, you check upstairs. I'll see what I can find down here. And for once, I hope it's nothing. I gave the ground floor a fast run-through. It was neat and tidy, from copper-potted ivy on the dining room wall to the Sunbeam Toastmaster on the breakfast tray. The only thing out of place was a bottle of scotch near the kitchen sink and lipstick on the glass beside it said Sheila. I was back in the living room before I found out why she had needed that bracer. Propped against the bowl of violets on the coffee table were two notes pinned together. The top one was for me, from Sheila. It said, Marlowe, I just found this note from Frank. I'm sure he means that he's going out in our boat, the Carefree. I've got to stop him, Sheila. I turned to Frank's note and was reading it as Slater came down the stairs.
Nothing unusual upstairs, Marlowe, did you? What's that? What have you found?
Frank's suicide note. He asked Sheila to forgive him and forget him. Yeah, read it yourself. I'm going to call the police.
Sure he means that he's going out in our boat to Carefree.
Say.
What's wrong? I thought you were going to call the police.
I was. But I noticed this phone number here on the desk blotter again. It's a tobacco dealer. Slater, I've got a very wacky idea. I'm going to give it a try.
Hello?
Newton Tobacco Shop?
Yes, but wait. Closed. It's after midnight, you know.
Yeah, I know. This is the police, Mr. Newton. We want some information.
Police? What did you want?
Take it easy. Do you have a customer named Emery, Frank Emery?
Yes. He was in late this afternoon.
What'd he buy?
Tobacco, a special black
I see. How much of it did he get?
Oh, my. Let me think now. 2 pounds. Yes, that's right. 2 pounds. I'm sure of it.
Man could lay quite a smoke screen with 2 pounds of tobacco, couldn't he? Thanks, Mr. Newton. You've been a big help. What's the matter, Slater? You look troubled. Are you thinking the same thing I am?
I don't know what you're thinking, Marlowe.
This. It's mighty weird for a guy who's planning suicide to go buy himself 2 pounds of tobacco a few hours before he blows his brains out. Put it succinctly, pal, I'm thinking that Frank Emery's suicide's a big fat phony.
This is Lieutenant Ibarra.
Marlowe, Ibarra. Catching you at this hour is the best break I've had all night.
How so? What's up, Marlowe?
Guy's been murdered, and his killer, one Frank Emery, is getting away by boat. Can you sell the harbor patrol on running him down for me? It's his own, a sailboat called the Carefree. A 30-footer with an auxiliary motor. He'll be out a ways, off Topanga Canyon.
Well, that can be arranged, but where'll I find you? I'll need some particulars.
I'm going to his beach place. It's in a little cove 2 miles above Santa Monica. There's a pier and a boathouse a couple of 100 yards beyond.
Okay, Marlowe, we'll find it. Now, listen, don't get your feet wet. Wait till we get there.
The Emery Beach House was deserted and dark. So Slater and I went on to the boathouse, which was dark, too. That's where we found Sheila lying on the planks, sobbing out the end of a long, hard cry. Slater ran to her and lifted her to her feet.
Oh, Sheila. Sheila, what happened? Where's Frank?
Oh, please. I was too late. I saw him leave. He waved to me and called goodbye. I begged him to come back, but no, he never will.
Don't be too sure of that, honey.
Oh, what do you mean, Marlowe?
Oh, wait a minute. That boat coming in is probably Ibarra.
Marlowe!
Yeah, here, Ibarra.
I got another boat out looking for the Carefree, Marlowe, so I came directly here.
Who's this? Mrs. Emery, Mr. Slater, Lieutenant Ibarra.
How do you do, Lieutenant? Well, Marlowe, what's it all about?
Well, the embezzler killed his boss, set up a strong case of suicide, and at the moment is pulling a very fast switch.
You mean he's not really checking out? How'd you figure?
He bought 2 pounds of his favorite pipe tobacco today.
What's that?
Wait, Sheila.
Well, that's interesting, Phil, but suicide's a peculiar people.
Okay, but I'll bet you my Sea Scout insignia against a dead jellyfish that he's got a small boat aboard, and that he's going to get off the Carefree and row to shore. How about it, Mrs. Emery? Is there a small boat?
There's a rubber life raft in one of the lockers.
That'll do it. It's all he needs.
Lieutenant Ibarra? Yes, Mooney, what is it?
We just got a call on the radio from the other boat. They've spotted the Carefree running without lights southwest about 2.5 miles offshore. He's holding a steady course, but there's nobody at the wheel. In fact, seems to be abandoned.
Well, tell him to stand by, but leave her alone. We'll be right out. Well, Marlowe, we'll know in a minute. Let's go, folks. Get aboard.
Sliced through the black swells with the easy grace of a head waiter after a $10 tip. And all the way out, it looked as though Marlowe was going to be the bright boy of the evening. When we pulled alongside the Carefree and made her fast and boarded her, it still looked that way. It looked great, right up to the point when Ibarra peered through the porthole in the closed cabin, jerked the door open, and went inside. After that, it didn't look so good.
Marlowe, come in here. Is this Frank Emery?
Yeah, that's him, Ibarra.
He's been shot over the heart from up close with a .45. Undoubtedly the one he still has gripped in his hand there.
Lieutenant Ibarra, is it Frank?
Yeah, you better not come in, Mrs. Emery. Your husband has killed himself.
I walked back to the stern and sat down. Ibarra was going through his grim routine inside, and I felt lousy. I stared down vacantly at my feet and only gradually became aware of the little brass cylinder that danced across the deck with every roll of the boat. I picked it up. It was an ejected cartridge from a .45. I'd found an empty .45 cartridge. All at once, things began to take shape for me. Ibarra, hold everything. I was right. Emery didn't commit suicide after all.
Phil, the man's body's right here, the gun in his hand.
I know, but he was murdered. Now, look, I found this out on deck, and the door to this cabin was closed. Do you remember? When a man is shot with a .45, he drops. He doesn't walk in, close the door, and then fall.
Well,
Did Emery have any keys on him?
Yes, these are his. They're in the ignition by the wheel.
Sure. Look, this diamond-shaped one. It matches one I've got in my pocket. Come on out on deck, Ibarra, and watch closely. Hey, Slater, can I see your key to the side door of the factory?
Why, certainly, Marlowe. It's right here in my pocket.
It's not in your pocket because it's here in my hand, Slater. You were so excited when you shot Quig, you ran off and left it sticking in the lock.
No.
And here's one for you, Mrs. Emery. While the Carefree was still tied up at the dock, you stood right here, surprised your husband in the cabin door, and shot him. This little cartridge was ejected back to the stern. But you forgot about that, because after you shoved him inside and put the gun in his hand, you closed the door. Then you started the motor, locked the wheel, and cut the boat loose.
I don't know what you're talking
about. Look out, Ibarra, hand me your gun. That was nice, Ibarra.
Marlowe, I wouldn't have believed this. Don't lose your place, because you'll have to go over it all again.
Don't worry, I won't. You see, it's sort of like an equation. 2 pounds of tobacco and 2 pieces of brass added up to 2 bodies and 2 murderers.
Well, Marlowe, it beats me that Mrs. Emery seemed to be nothing but sweet, soft, and stay-at-home nights.
Yeah. Yes, she pulled one of the richest double crosses on record. Ibarra, she let her husband steal a fortune for her and even helped them plan a fake suicide to get away. Then she turned around and used this plan, only no fake this time, to kill him. So she'd be free to marry Slater.
But you didn't want Slater without the money, right?
Right. As long as August Quig lived, Slater could never be sure of his income.
So Slater killed him, and they hung that on Frank Emery, too.
Mm-hmm. And they worked a fast routine to pass the detective right through the middle of it all. While Slater killed Quig, I was with Sheila. Then Slater took me over while she killed Frank.
They make a great team in a shell game, Marlowe.
Yeah.
But you did all right. Well, see you tomorrow, the report, you know. Good night, Phil.
I sat alone on the pier for a long time. I watched the waves come in, and gradually my mind got untangled from the treachery and violence it had been wrapped up in all night. And the lady turned out to be the tiger. And then as my thoughts plowed back through the whole mess of the afternoon when I'd been shopping for Christmas cards, I made up my mind to cancel my order and have an entirely new set printed up. They say it pays to advertise, and if that's true, right across the top of my new cards in big block letters, I'm going to have the words, goodwill toward men. Who knows? Maybe it'll help. Anyway, I hope so.
The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, created by Raymond Chandler, stars Gerald Moore, and is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald. Script by Mel Donnelly, Robert Mitchell, and Gene Levitt. Featured in tonight's cast were Barbara Fuller, Louis Van Rooten, Bill Lally, and Edgar Barrier. Lieutenant Ibarra was played by Jeff Corey. The special music was conceived and conducted by Richard Arant. Be sure and be with us again next week when Philip Marlowe says...
I walked into it smiling because it had all the corny elements. The weird doctor, the beautiful girl, the gloomy house on the windswept cliff, even the hulking menace. Only one thing was missing, the body. And that's when I stopped smiling, because I turned out to be the corpse myself, almost.
Cola, P-E-P-S-I. That's your smartest cola buy. Pepsi-Cola presents Counterspy.
Washington calling David Harding, Counterspy. Washington calling David Harding, Counterspy.
Harding, Counterspy. Calling Washington.
United States Counterspies, especially appointed to investigate and combat the enemies of our country, both at home and abroad.
Tonight, the case of the desert explosion. Another Counterspy report to the American people. Brought to you each Tuesday and Thursday by Pepsi-Cola.
Pepsi-Cola hits the spot. 2 full glasses, that's a lot.
That's right. You heard what they said. 2 full glasses of sparkling Pepsi from one big 12-ounce bottle. You're getting an extra glassful. And what a delicious glassful. The most refreshing, delightful cola that ever tickled your taste. You can't top Pepsi's tangy flavor. And that big, big bottle saves you money, goes twice as far. Pepsi's America's big, big favorite. And America's biggest cola value. So why take less when Pepsi's best? Whenever you reach for refreshment, remember,
why take less when Pepsi's best?
And now, to Counterspy. Out in the desert mountains of Mexico, the heat has long since destroyed all life. Except high in the air, the ominous circling of great bloodthirsty birds of prey. And on the hard, sun-cracked earth, a small group of men with one woman moving slowly to the base of a cliff.
Very well. We stop here. Senora. Listen to me, Senora. And you men, you will listen, too. You have all worked for me for some years. I pay you well. No one in Mexico can deny that. But you know, too, I will not allow anyone to betray me and live. This woman, this miserable wretch and her husband, one of my most successful operators in narcotics, tried to sell me out. Her husband, he is already dead. And now this woman shall die here.
No.
Her death will be a lesson to all of you. Never to talk. Never. Senora, look. Above you in the sky. You see the birds? The birds of death? Do the rest of you understand? I see you do. Now, Senora.
No!
Now, gentlemen, we shall leave.
Some weeks later, at midnight, in a cafe in the Mexican city of Cordoba, a trim, alert-eyed girl sat drinking alone. As a young, roughly dressed Mexican entered at the front door and approached her, she glanced down into her open purse and drew confidence from the .25 caliber revolver nestling there.
Hola, guapa.
Keep it clean, Junior.
In Mexico, guapa means pretty.
Pretty what?
Pretty nifty. I know American slang too, no?
No.
Well, then you teach me.
Teacher's not in the mood.
Oh, you have a little temper, but I sit down and help the mood to change, eh? Senorita, you are as beautiful as the dogs of my native village.
Take it easy, Buster. You'll weigh yourself out.
Hola, mozo, 12 veces.
Sí. Good to see you again, Peppy.
You have news?
We've taken a ranch house 20 miles outside the city.
We?
Me, you'll call me Ella Thomas, and the boss, Mr. Jones.
I'm ready to work with you.
The man we're after is Manuel Rodriguez.
The Manuel Rodriguez?
Careful, the waiter.
Sí.
¿Ya centavos?
Sí, aquí está.
Ah, muchas gracias.
Nada.
Now, Peppy, tell me what you know about Rodriguez.
He is one of the richest, most fantastic, most powerful men in Mexico. And one of the cruelest. An international broker of secret information. On his enormous ranch not far from here, he gives big fiestas.
Hey.
When American dancing shows come here, he invites everybody. He may keep guests for a week. People from all over the world. And, when I met on his ranch, I said to the
large poppy fields for opium. He's a big dope smuggler.
That's our boy.
Most of his enemies disappear. He said he takes them into the desert and murders them. Others remain silent out of fear.
It'll be a great thrill to outsmart him, Pepe.
You have a plan?
First, you're to get an ordinary peon's job on the Rodriguez ranch. That ought to be easy.
At this time of the year, yes.
In my hand under the table, in small packages. Take them.
See. I have them.
The drug in the blue paper will cause large blotches on your skin.
Dios mío.
Now, they're harmless. The drug in pink paper will make the pupils of your eyes dilate.
Uh-huh.
And the one in white paper, you'll run a quick high fever without any bad results.
And then?
In 2 weeks, Mr. Jones and I will visit Manuel Rodriguez and his ranch. We will explain that we are agents of the United States government.
Counterspies?
Why not? And that we have come to arrest you.
Oh. Very good. Now, another drink, eh? Hola, mozo! Mozo!
Yes, now, what did you say your business was, Mr.
Jones.
Oh.
I didn't say, but I will, Mr. Rodriguez. Miss Thomas and I are agents of the United States government.
Counterspy.
On Mexican soil?
We've just rented a place 9 miles from your ranch here.
The old Gomez place, huh?
Oh, old is right. And the reason
And we're
we're...
in Mexico to recover a quantity of a new uranium compound worth over $1 million. It was stolen from one of our atomic plants.
And you think I have it, Mr. Jones?
We think it's here, on your ranch.
I do not enjoy jokes of this kind.
We'd already recovered the stuff and shipped the criminals back to the States for punishment.
But before we could leave, too, the uranium compound was stolen again.
And again I ask, do you think I have it?
Well, you know how to handle it.
Let
but...
me, Alan.
Oh, for Pete's sake, let me finish a sentence once in a while.
Mr. Rodriguez, as Miss Thomas says, you would know how to handle uranium. But the thief, we're afraid, does not.
Incredible.
You see, it was swept up along with some money, a watch, a few papers out of a safe in my room.
How did you learn that, Mr. Jones?
One of our Paines confessed that 2 weeks ago he and another man got drunk and ransacked my room.
The peon with a guilty conscience?
Mr. Jones used a whip. That's how we found out about Pepe Ramirez.
Pepe Ramirez?
Ah, then he is working here.
Follow me to his shack, please. For questioning. I must tell you, however, he is very ill. My ranch doctor is back.
Have you seen him yourself?
Briefly.
Is his skin badly blotched? Pupils of the eyes dilated?
You running a high fever?
How did you know his symptoms?
Those are the early symptoms of uranium poisoning.
That clinches the theft on Pepe, Mr. Jones.
Through this door, please. Mr. Jones, do you mean that this miserable peon is hiding $1 million worth of a new uranium compound?
How else would he get uranium poisoning?
Right here. Under my very nose. The shack is down this way.
Senor Rodriguez, I did not steal.
These people want the truth.
Better talk, Pepe.
I'm sick.
I'll make you sicker.
Pepe, where did you hide the uranium? One more chance, Pepe. We beat it out of you good.
The whip, Mr. Jones?
No, I think he's cracking now.
Please, I did not know. See in this bunk.
His bunk.
That's better.
Pull him out of there.
No, please.
To rip out the mattress.
Put on your gloves first, Jones.
Gloves?
It's special gloves. It's the only safe way to handle this stuff. Now, the mattress.
Nothing.
Try the boards.
Yeah.
Is there anything?
Here we are. See?
That little bottle. Worth $1 million?
Maybe more. to some government abroad.
Yes, I can imagine. Now, may I offer you both some refreshment back in the house?
No, thank you. We've got work to do at our own place.
Perhaps I may call on you in the next few days.
Business, Mr. Rodriguez?
Purely social. If you don't mind, Miss Thomas.
Not at all, Mr. Rodriguez. Jonesy, he fell for it 2,000%.
A perfect trick.
When he saw that little vial, his tongue hung out like a hound dog.
$1 million, he thought, right under his nose. And he hadn't known it.
Jonesy. Behind us on the road, the car following.
10 to 1, it's Rodriguez.
Following to see where we go with the bottle.
Maybe find out if we really are counter-spies or not.
You think he was putting on an act back there?
He's clever enough to.
I'll swear he thought Pepe was really sick.
Lucky those drugs you gave Pepe fooled the doctor.
Well, nothing to do now but get back to the Gomez place and see what happens.
With guns handy and backs to the wall.
Yeah.
That car still following?
Same distance.
Maybe Rodriguez will pay that social call of his right away. He fell for you hard.
Yeah. He noticed you and I don't get along.
I'm betting he makes a try for this little vial. He won't stop at anything if he thinks he can get away with it. And he may start tonight.
Jonesy. Somebody's lurking around outside the ranch house. I've seen a shadow several times.
Rodriguez?
If he'd either go away or come in, I don't like the suspense.
He may shoot. Stay away from the windows.
Can't we pull something on him?
We might. Yeah, let's try it.
What?
Get out our suitcases. Start packing as if we're leaving. Maybe that'll hustle him into action.
Worth trying, anyhow. My bag's in the closet.
Ella, I think if we drive the rest of the night, we can make El Paso by daylight.
Sure we can. We'll check with the boss when we get there. Here's your briefcase.
Keep it up, Ella.
You know, it's a darn shame we got that call to leave so soon. I like this part of the cut.
Now we find out the worst. I'll go. Oh, hello, Mr. Rodriguez. Come in.
Mr. Jones, you forgive this unexpected visit sooner than I planned. Ah, Mr. Thomas, how charming you look.
Yes, and haven't I changed in the last 2 hours?
Packing, Mr. Jones? I understood you were staying some days more.
Well, we got a hurry call.
Oh. This gives me no time to cultivate the acquaintance of Miss Thomas.
I'll come back someday, Mr. Rodriguez.
Or perhaps you are not even leaving, either of you.
Hmm?
What?
You are not United States counterspies. You yourselves are the thieves of that uranium material.
Mr. Rodriguez, you're all wrong.
Further, you yourselves intend to sell it.
We don't know anybody with $1 million.
Shut up, Ellen.
You never let me talk.
Miss Thomas, suppose you did know someone with $1 million.
We're American agents, Rodriguez.
You are not. You're a pair of crooks. Now, suppose that vial contains the uranium compound, and you knew someone with $1.5 million.
Well, that'd
Shut up, Ella. Go ahead, Rodriguez.
Can you prove it is the real uranium compound?
Let's say we could.
Then in 3 days I can raise $1.5 million. Cash. American dollars.
And then you'll resell the material abroad for $10 million,
That would be my risk.
Take the deal, Jonesy.
Okay, Rodriguez. We'll prove it's the uranium compound. 6 drops plus certain other ingredients can be set off by a cap attached to a fuse.
Uranium is not set off that way.
I told you this is a new secret development. It can be used dozens of ways. You will show me now? If I let you know where the stuff is hidden, our lives won't be worth a nickel.
Cautious, aren't you? Very well. Where and when?
We'll pick you up tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 and lead you to some deserted spot in these mountains around here.
Good. Until tomorrow, Mr. Jones, Miss Thomas.
Oh, you won't see me there. I'm going over to Gulf City and wait for a phone call from Jonesy. And you?
It shall come from me, Miss Thomas.
One had better come from Jonesy, too, Mr. Rodriguez. Or I tell the Mexican police that you left him in the mountains with those man-eating birds you've got around here.
You are both very clever. Good night.
Back to Counterspy in just a moment. But first...
Pepsi-Cola, it's a spot. 2 full glasses, that's a lot. Lots more value, lots more zest. Why take less when Pepsi's best?
More and more, among fellows and girls, among mothers and dads, you hear that sane and sensible question, why take less when Pepsi is best? No budget, no allowance ever had a better friend than tangy, sparkling Pepsi-Cola. Because one big 12-ounce Pepsi bottle gives you 2 delicious drinks. That's twice as much tangy taste, twice as much delicious Pepsi to go just twice as far. That's why more and more families say, why take less when Pepsi's best? Yes, families like yours and mine. Families all over America. They're all saying, why take less when Pepsi's best?
Pepsi-Cola so delicious, and each bottle makes 2 drinks. It is certainly the cola for the purchaser who thinks everybody's drinking Pepsi. Just compare it with the rest. So much more and so much finer. Why take less when Pepsi's best?
Today, tomorrow, always. Get America's biggest cola value. Take home a carton of 6 big Pepsi bottles. Insist on Pepsi at the store. And say Pepsi at the fountain. Say Pepsi at the stand. Say Pepsi. Whenever you reach for refreshment, remember,
why take less when Pepsi's best?
And now, back to Counterspy. It is hot, blazing noon in the desert mountains of Mexico.
Rodriguez, we're 40 miles from any other human being.
Now, here's where I set up the experiment. It'll be fairly safe, I hope. A few drops of the uranium compound plus the other ingredients into fuse. If you're ready.
Mr. Jones, look at those balloons of prey swirling above us in the engine.
I guess we look like a meal to them,
We call them birds of death. They're cruel, powerful, bloodthirsty. If you try to cheat me, Mr. Jones, I will break both your legs with bullets and leave you here alive for those birds.
Cute ideas you have, don't you?
Light the fuse.
Now run. We have 8 seconds.
Hey! Mr. Jones, I fell! Help me out!
Up with you. 3 seconds. Come on. Behind these rocks. Just made it.
Mr. Jones, I apologize for my suspicions. I will have the money for you in 48 hours.
Where?
Your ranch house?
Fine. And I'll be ready to show you where the material is.
Until then, Mr. Jones, I'm driving away now.
Come on out, Ella.
Coming. I thought sure he saw that wire run near the battery I'd hidden.
Luckily for us, his greed's making him blind.
What if he followed us out here last night when we set up this fake uranium explosion?
When he fell down, he was really scared. He never suspected it was fake.
But to fall for this, 3 cents worth of harmless powder posing as uranium, 6 charges of ordinary TNT.
Stop worrying, Ella. We've got Rodriguez hooked. Come on, let's get to our ranch.
Life may be great, Jonesy, but I don't like cooking.
Only another day to wait.
Vegetable, you want Mexican beans or Mexican beans?
I'd rather have Mexican beans.
Good, that's all we got.
And then put out the light.
Got it.
Out the back window. I saw somebody coming.
Rodriguez, ahead of time?
Get just beyond the doorway to the dining room. I'll stay here. You cover me with your gun.
Right.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah.
I'm David Harding, United States Counterspy. May I come in?
Can't stop you, can I?
You alone?
Yes, Chief.
Okay, Ella, come on in.
Coming. Harding, am I glad to see you.
Hello, Ella. Sorry to put you two through this rigmarole.
Dave, with Rodriguez around, safety first is the best motto.
Mr. Jones, can we use the shortwave radio?
Right here, Mr. Harding. It's hidden in the cupboard.
I want the Mexican secret police in Cordoba. What's the frequency?
Channel 18.
Harding to SX, Channel 18. Come in, Channel 18. Hello, Pepe. Rodriguez has fallen for our cock and bull story about that stolen uranium. Now, all we need is one break so we can get other people to talk to us about Rodriguez. You'd better stand by in case they need help.
Right.
Now, Washington. Harding to Channel 1. Come in, Channel 1.
Channel 1, Mr. Harding. Go ahead.
Edwards, from now on, keep this channel open 24 hours a day. I may want instantaneous check on fingerprints.
Right.
I'm with Peters and Ella in Mexico in their ranch house. I flew in this morning when things got hot. We're getting the best line yet on our old friend Rodriguez, the espionage broker.
I hope you land him this time, sir.
We've got a baited hook out for him, but with that man, I'm not going to wait for him to bite. I'm going to cram it down his throat.
It's off.
What happened?
I had a fight with Jones. You know my temper. I hit him with a paperweight. I think I killed him. Please help me.
Of course, Ella. Where did you leave him?
Back in our ranch house. He's on the floor all bloody. Mr. Rodriguez, I don't know what I'm going to do.
My dear Ella, I'll look after you.
But the police, they may discover the murder and look for me.
If need be, I can hide you forever.
What?
Don't worry. We must go there at once.
I don't want to go back there.
My dear, I was planning to buy that uranium compound. Now, can't you and I get it for nothing? Come. Ella, it's pitch dark in here.
I know. I cut the light and telephone wires when I left.
You have a candle?
Yes. There's one beside you on the piano.
That's better. And here's our friend, Mr. Jones.
Alive. Thank heavens he's alive.
But not very much alive. Now, the uranium compound.
I know where it's hidden.
Get it.
Just a moment.
In the on the wall? What an obvious place.
It was safe. You're the only one that even knew we had it.
But we'll have it.
Here. Watch how you handle it.
Now, to arrange matters for you.
Me?
You will leave all your clothes here except what you actually need. And the shallow grave of a woman I had to dispose of, not far from here, I will... You will not mind being impersonated by the bones of a dead woman.
I don't get it.
And we will smash this place up a bit. This bookend, mirror, for instance.
What are you doing?
Planning your death, Miss Thomas.
I've got a gun, Rodriguez.
Your apparent death in this house burned out by an accidental fire.
Oh.
While you hide on my ranch until we go to Europe, secretly. But now to finish off Mr. Jones.
You're going to kill him before you set the fire?
Of course. Which other bookend will do?
Stop, Rodriguez. Hands in the air, Rodriguez.
I'll take that bookend.
Rodriguez, you're under arrest by the United States Counterspy. The Mexican National Police.
Ridiculous.
One charge, violation of the international agreement covering the safety of atomic material and information.
I was not in this alone. This woman, this man Jones.
By the way, Jonesy, you okay?
Fine. Only tired of lying on the floor.
Rodriguez, meet Mr. Jones, or let's call him Harry Peters, my assistant.
But you have no evidence. No one will dare to speak against me.
Rodriguez, you're a murderer. You kept people silent by fear. The gunmen and narcotics runners who worked for you were afraid to talk. Now that you're under arrest, they'll be free to tell everything they know.
By the way, Mr. Harding, here's the uranium wrapped up in his pocket.
He earned that, Ella. Let him keep it. It's only a few cents worth of harmless powder. I'm sorry, Rodriguez, but illegal possession of uranium is the one charge we can't hang on you.
When your friends drop in, be generous, but be thrifty, too. Serve plenty of delicious Pepsi-Cola. Pepsi's big 12-ounce bottle gives you not just one sparkling glass full, but two. Get a carton of 6 and serve 12 delicious drinks. Yes, Pepsi is America's biggest cola value. You get twice the tangy taste, twice the refreshment, twice the Pepsi. So why take less when Pepsi is best? Whenever you reach for refreshment, remember, Pepsi-Cola hits the spot. 2 full glasses, that's a lot. Lots more value, lots more zest. Why take less when Pepsi's best? Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday, same time, same station, to Counterspy. Listen next Tuesday for the exciting Counterspy case of the bouncing bank robber.
The quick-shooting intruder who power plunged through a plate glass window. The ferry boat that whistled a strange message about the passenger who had jumped overboard. And the roller coaster in reverse that carried a killer who was beyond the electric chair. That's next Tuesday's Counterspy case. So be sure to listen.
Case of the bouncing bank robber on Counterspy. Tonight's Counterspy program originated in New York, was directed by William M. Sweets, and featured Don McLaughlin and Mandel Kramer, with music by Jesse Crawford. Counterspy is a Phillips H. Lord production for Pepsi-Cola. Enjoy some Pepsi, ice cold tonight.
Crime does not pay.
Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy, darling, how can you even think a thing like that, much less say it out loud?
Because it happens to be true. You heard them tonight.
But they weren't talking about you.
Now you're trying to protect them. You're my girl, aren't you?
Jimmy,
Or are you?
sometimes I just don't recognize you at all.
Well, then take a good look, Diane. Because I'm the guy who never got overseas during the war. And everybody's been laughing at me ever since.
In the interest of good citizenship and law enforcement, we present Crime Does Not Pay, based on the famous Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer series of short subjects. In just a moment, you will hear For He's a Jolly Good Fellow, starring John Beale. Now, Crime Does Not Pay, starring John Beale as Jimmy Lodge in For He's a Jolly Good Fellow. What makes someone murder? There aren't many motives, and this crime is committed much more often by amateurs than by professionals. Perhaps that's because there is so little profit in murder. Man or woman raises his hand against his fellow over love, greed, revenge. In the case of Jimmy Lodge, it was revenge. Revenge for a fancied injury. Actually, Jimmy had the kind of life everyone envies. Plenty of money, good looks, education, and a lovely girl to whom he was to be married. Typical of Jimmy's life was one evening at the country club. It was spring. No one had a care in the world.
I couldn't say the same thing anyway.
Jimmy, I think this is the best Saturday night ever.
Yeah, well, I'm glad, darling.
Diane, dear, have you and Jimmy set the date yet? Well, not yet, but soon, Anne. Very soon.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're keeping it a secret, but very soon. You think I want to wind up a bachelor president of this club like Martin here?
Hey, young fella, what's wrong with that?
Oh, nothing, I guess. Only Diane will be a lot prettier to have around than that solemn-faced housekeeper of yours, Mrs. Krakauer.
He's got you there, old man.
Hey, that's my favorite. Our favorite, Di.
Are we dancing, darling?
Oh, no, I feel too good to dance. I'm going to sing.
Attaboy, Jimmy. Give out for us, will you?
Sure thing. I'll be back in a couple of minutes, Di.
Enjoy yourself, darling.
Hey, guys. Mind if I take a chorus? I'm on my hands, you in my arms, nothing but love in view. Then if you fall once and for all, I'll see my dreams come true. Moments to spare for someone you care for, one love affair for two. With time on my hands and you in my arms and love in my heart, all for you. Thank you one and all. I bow. And now, if you'll excuse me, take it, guys.
And I don't know, Martin. Exhibitionism has a variety of motives.
Well, personally, I never could stand a show-off.
A show-off is a show-off, that's all. Well, you know how it is. Some people just never grow up.
Darling, you were wonderful. Simply terrific.
Oh, not bad. Not bad at all.
You'll do, son. You'll do.
Oh, will I? Even if I am an exhibitionist and a show-off?
Why, Jimmy, you a show-off? Of course not, Jimmy.
Well, now, look, Jim, I don't know how you...
Whatever made you say that, Jim?
You know, as well as I do. Come on, Di. The party's over.
Jimmy, please.
Well, it's over for me. It isn't much fun when you hear something you're not supposed to hear. And this isn't the first time either. Well, are you coming, or do I go alone?
Jimmy, where you got this idea, I'd like to know.
Oh, he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny. Yeah, except everybody does, behind my back.
Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy, darling, how could you even think a thing like that, much less say
Because it happens to be true. You heard them tonight.
They weren't talking about you.
Oh, now you're trying to protect them. You're my girl, aren't you? Or are you?
Jimmy, sometimes I just don't recognize you.
Now, well, then take a good look, Diane. Because I'm the guy who never got overseas during the war. I've been lacking ever since.
So that's all the ridiculous ideas.
Ridiculous? Just wait. You'll see how ridiculous it is when I get even. Laugh at me behind my back, will they? They'll laugh on the other side of their faces after I get even. If they can laugh, then.
Next, please.
I'm next, I guess.
Yes, sir.
You have a box available?
Here's your application. Now, fill it out, pay the fee, and I'll give you your key.
Thank you.
Pen and ink at the desk, sir.
Post office pens. Well, here goes nothing. Name, Jack Lyons. 3343 West 63rd. City. State. Fee paid. Purpose. Purpose. Would they be surprised if I wrote down purpose? Murder.
Don't get it, Martin. I just don't get it.
It's not that we've charged a servant or anything.
No.
All our help has been with us for years.
Well, I'm sure my Mrs. Krakauer isn't writing anything like that to me. Oh, it's some crank or other. Let's forget it and have fun. Sure.
Well, I think you'd be scared. Oh, now, don't you worry, too, Diane. Martin's right. It's some crank who was kept out of the club or something.
Hello, everybody. Oh, hello, Jimmy. How are you?
Jim.
Hello, Jimmy.
Di?
Well, kiss him. Go ahead. We don't mind.
David, stop it. You're embarrassing them.
Embarrassing me? The jolly good fella? Not a chance. Di, darling, your lips, please.
Well...
Thank you, darling.
Nothing like young love, I always say. Yes, indeed.
Why don't you ask Jimmy? Maybe he'll have an idea.
What, Ann? Ask Jimmy.
Yeah.
Oh, about the letters.
Uh-huh.
What letters?
Martin and I have had threatening letters.
Threatening? How?
Oh, the usual thing. I'll get even for what you did to me. You know I got even while you're dying.
Even? For what?
Who knows?
You got one too, Martin?
Oh, yeah, sure. Exactly the same. Typewritten. No return address, of course.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, well, some crank, I guess. Why don't you just forget about it?
That's just what we were saying. Music. Well, wife, we'll dance with husband?
Don't mind if I do. See you later, people.
Diane?
No, thanks. Not now.
Say, look, will you excuse me, youngsters? I promised myself I'd be home and in bed early tonight.
Oh, yes, of course, Martin.
Well, it's very early for you, isn't it? What will the club do without you?
Oh, it'll run itself one night anyway. Good night, Diane. Jimmy.
Good night, Martin.
Yeah. Good night.
Jimmy?
Yes, darling?
Did you write those letters?
Oh, what in the world gave you that idea?
Jimmy, did you?
Oh, don't be foolish, sweetheart. Well, if I wanted to do anything about getting even with those guys, would I write a letter about it first?
You're home early, Mr. Prendergast.
Yes, I am, Mrs. Krakauer, and I'm going right up to bed.
Yes, sir. I'll go to my room, too, sir. I have a small headache.
Taking anything?
No, sir. I thought maybe an aspirin just before I get into bed.
Oh, well, we'll do better than that. There's that package that came for me this morning, that headache powder sample. Do you know where it is, Mrs. Kay?
I put it in your medicine chest, sir. Wrapped just the way it came.
Well, fine. You just trot on upstairs, and I'll fix you a dose. I hear that's pretty wonderful stuff. It's been nationally advertised. Have your writer's rain in the morning. What is that? Mrs. Krakauer, is that you? Where am I slipping? That's the river light. Never can find anything in a hurry. Yeah, that's better. Here they are.
Mr. Prendergast. Mr. Prendergast.
Krakow, what's the matter?
My feet. My feet.
Well, Mrs. Gordon, what in the name of heaven is the matter?
It's so... I can't stand it. Something's stabbing my stomach. Stomach. Doctor, please.
Yes.
Doctor.
Yes, sure, of course.
Hello?
Dr. Rudolph?
Yes, Rudolph.
This is Martin Prendergast. Can you come over here right away?
2 in the morning. Is it serious?
Well, it seems to be. It's my housekeeper. It's quite sudden. She's in terrible pain and complains of itching feet. I don't understand.
Oh, I'll be right over. Try to give an medic at once. I'll be there as quickly as I can.
Well, Doctor? She better?
Well, I've done everything possible, Prendergast.
Well, then she is better.
She's dead.
Why, I can't believe it.
Well, you'll have to. It's a fact. A terrible, meaningless death.
Well, I'll have to notify her family. There's a brother, I think. You'll tender the details for me, Doctor, will you please?
Details?
Well, I mean like the death certificate.
There won't be a death certificate. Not tonight, Prendergast.
What? Why not?
Because I won't sign it. Your first call isn't to her family, Prendergast. It's to the police. Your housekeeper had all the symptoms of poisoning by strychnine.
In just a moment, Crime Does Not Pay will continue with For He's a Jolly Good Fellow. Now we continue with Crime Does Not Pay, starring John Veal as Jimmy Lodge in For He's a Jolly Good Fellow. Martin Prendergast obeyed Dr. Rudolph automatically. He called the police and then Mrs. Krakauer's brother. Within minutes, 2 patrolmen from a radio car were in the house, and shortly thereafter the homicide detail arrived, Lieutenant Hank Rollins in charge. Quick routine matters were taken care of, and then the lieutenant turned his attention to Mr. Prendergast.
Hello, Mr. Prendergast. Do you have any reason why your housekeeper should want to commit suicide?
No, none at all, Lieutenant.
Did you have any such intention?
Of course not.
Then why, sir, was there a legal quantity of strychnine in this house in such a peculiar place?
What?
We haven't had the contents of the bottle analyzed yet, but the doctor was positive. Says the strychnine was in a bottle of a headache preparation he found on the next to the woman's bed.
Why, then I gave it to her myself.
Mr. Prendergast, are you confessing to a murder?
No, I'm not, but I gave her the bottle from my medicine chest.
Where did you get it?
Well, it came in the mail. Like so many of us do. You know.
Ever opened before?
No, not even unwrapped. The paper must be still in the wastebasket. I opened it for her last night.
Was addressed to whom?
To me, of course.
Mr. Prendergast, is there anybody who wants to kill you?
Oh, naturally not.
Everybody's always so certain about that. Never even had a threatening letter from anyone?
Well, now that you remind me, yes, I did, just a few days ago. Something about getting even.
Do you have that letter? And the wrappings from the package the bottle came in?
Well, the letter's here in my desk. The wrappings...
Yeah, I got them. Wastebasket, as you said. Interesting. Post office box return address.
Well, they all have that usually.
Yes, I know.
And here's the letter. Well, Lieutenant?
This is interesting. Notice the similarity in the typing on the label and the letter. Mr. Prendergast, you're certain that none of your close associates harbors a grudge of any kind?
Oh, that idea's ridiculous.
Perhaps not. Look, I have a lot of detail in this case today. Reports, autopsy, all that, but I'll appreciate it if you'll invite me to your club tonight as a guest, without mentioning that I happen to be part of the homicide detail. You do that for me, Mr. Prendergast?
Diane, this is Hank Rollins, a friend of mine from out of town. Hank, Diane Lawson.
How do you do, Mr. Rollins?
How do you do?
And Jimmy Lodge, Hank Rollins.
Lodge?
I don't know you, Mr. Rollins.
You look tired, Martin.
Well, I am. I wouldn't have come here if it weren't for Hank.
Well, you took off early enough last night.
Yes. That's why, I guess. Mrs. Krakauer, my housekeeper, died at 4 this morning.
What?
Oh, no. She was such a nice person.
A call for Mr. Rollins, sir. I took the liberty of bringing the telephone. Yes, that's right. Plug it right in, Ricardo. Thank you, sir. The call for Mr. Rollins on here, please. Here you are, sir.
Thank you. This is Rollins. I see. Yeah, I understand. Doctor thought I should be called, huh? Very well, we'll be right over. I think we'd better go, Prendergast.
Go where?
Your friend David Maxwell is dead. Poisoned. Strychnine. Let's go over there, shall we?
But why? Why my David, Lieutenant?
That's one of the things we've got to find out, Mrs. Maxwell. Just one of the things.
And strychnine, cyanide at least as merciful.
This conversation isn't helping Anne any, I'm sure.
Oh, if it'll help catch the devil who killed David.
We'll get her, Mrs. Maxwell. Now, if you feel up to answering a few questions.
Anything.
You say your husband took some headache powder?
Yes. That.
What?
It came in the mail yesterday morning.
In the mail?
Well, Whitey... Martin, you didn't get some, too.
He did, Mrs. Maxwell. Tell me, did you get a threatening letter also?
Well, yes, you'll find it over
I
there.
have it here. And the wrapping from the bottle.
Well, that's just like mine.
Yes, isn't it? Same post office box. Even the same typing. Notice the open part of the E clogged with dirt. The I is out of line. The A has no top.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is clear. The same person tried to get you both. He missed you, Mr. Prendergast. I'd be careful if I were you from now on until we catch this murderer.
Here we are, Di.
Yes. Here we are.
And that's the first word you've said all the way home.
Jimmy. Dave Maxwell. Mrs. Krakauer. It's too awful.
Things like this happen all the time. Ever read the tabloids, darling?
But not to us.
Us? How do we fit in?
I don't know.
Oh, look, sweetheart, can't you forget about it long enough to kiss me goodnight?
I'll try.
Good.
No, don't touch me.
For the love of Pete.
Jimmy, I've got to say it. You know more about these deaths than you're saying.
You've gone completely nuts.
You wrote the letters. I know you did.
What? Oh, you're upset, Diane. You're talking yourself into something.
No. The way you talked the other night. The same words. Get even.
Will you stop it?
I can't.
Are you hysterical? Do I have to slap you?
No, don't you touch me. I think I loathe you. I'm going in the house. Don't get out of the car. Don't, Jimmy, don't.
Diane, why do you talk like this to me?
Because not once since I started talking have you denied you did it. Goodbye, Jimmy, goodbye.
You're making a grave charge, Miss Lawson.
I know.
Well, have you any evidence?
Only what I told you.
Conversation in an automobile when you both have had a few drinks. That's not evidence, Lawson. Any smart lawyer would destroy a cross-examination.
I know. But I know Jimmy did it. Maybe he's pretended. He knows I know. Maybe I'm the next.
But this is incredible, Lieutenant. Absolutely incredible.
Murder is an incredible crime.
Well, what could Jimmy Lodge have had against David and me? I won't believe it. Not Jimmy. Why, he's always been the life of the party. Oh, once in a while we used to kid him,
Yeah. Well, all I can say is we're getting closer. We have the mailing list of the firm that manufactures the headache powder. I had a request for samples from a post office box in this city. The same number that was on yours and Mr. Maxwell's packages.
And, the name?
Jack Lyons.
Jack Lyons. Jimmy Lodge. J.L.
Exactly, Mr. Prendergast. That's one of the mistakes an amateur almost always makes. The same initials for his own name and his alias. Now, I know you see a lot of people every day, Mr. Andrews, but this Lyons who rented this box from you, you think you'd know him again?
Yes, sir. I think I would.
Yeah, why?
Well, he spoiled 3 application blanks, Lieutenant. He made that blank one came to the space to be filled in for purpose.
I still don't believe it, Lieutenant.
Well, Mr. Andrews here will make it definite. So far, we've linked up the poison with the post office box. Shortly, I think we'll link the box to our man. I'm positive his typewriter will be the one the notes were written on, and you'll probably find his prints among those on the notes and the bottles. Not nervous, are you, Andrews?
No, sir. Gee, an awful lot of people here.
Saturday night's our big night.
Lieutenant, may I see you a moment?
Yes, of course, Miss Lawson. Pardon us, gentlemen.
Certainly, Lieutenant.
He's here. I saw him come in the side entrance. I asked Gus to play his favorite song. He'll get up to sing it, I'm sure.
Oh, thank you. You're a smart woman. Andrews knows nothing about his singing, and if Andrews recognizes him...
I'm on my hands.
Here it is, the song, I mean.
All right. Let's stand here with Andrews.
It is difficult, Mr. Prendergast, looking for someone in a crowd like this.
It'll make your identification all the better.
Exactly, Andrews. Proof in chord.
A vocalist, too, eh? Real nice affairs you run, Mr. Pratt.
Well, Andrews?
That's him. That's him singing. I'd know him again any place. That's the fella calls himself Jack Lyons.
All right. Stay here, all of you. I'll get him.
No. I'm coming, too.
Diane, come back here.
No.
Pardon me. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Pardon me, please. All right, Miss Lawson. Be quiet. All right. Pardon me. Just stay with me. Excuse me, Lodge.
Oh, it's you. That was my girl.
Jimmy.
Sorry, Lodge. I'm Rollins, homicide. Please come quietly.
Oh, so she spilled what she thought she knew, did she?
Don't make a scene, Lodge.
Jimmy, don't.
Oh, you don't take me. I got even with Maxwell. I'll get all of you.
Don't try it, Lodge.
You can't shoot in a crowd like this. You can't...
The window behind the orchestra. The window.
All right, Miss Lawson. I'm in a hook around the house. He won't get very far. You can depend on that.
Crime does not pay. John Beale, who was starred as Jimmy Lodge in For He's a Jolly Good Fellow, will be back with you in just a moment. Now, here in person is John Beale.
Jimmy Lodge might have gotten away with it, as the saying goes, even after Diane went to Lieutenant Rollins, if he hadn't left a trail behind him. A trail of similarities in the two deaths, and in the way the poison was introduced into the households of the victims. But the fact is that no matter how clever a criminal may be, one way or another, justice is always served. And inevitably, the perpetrator of a crime learns the cardinal lesson that crime does not pay.
Thank you, John Beale. Crime Does Not Pay is written by Ira Marion and directed by Marks B. Loeb, with music composed and conducted by John Gart. Technical advisor is Burton B. Turkis. The events, characters, and names used in the story you just heard are fictitious. Any similarity is purely coincidental.
With police and federal law enforcement departments throughout the United States. The only national program that brings you authentic police case histories.
Tonight, Gangbusters presents the case of the appointment with death, when a courageous policewoman waited for a deadly killer whom police didn't even know.
Gangbusters has asked the Honorable Frederick H. Block, Assistant United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, to narrate tonight's case.
Thank you, and good evening, Gangbusters listeners. Let's start tonight's case in a second-floor room of a dingy rooming house near the bay section of a large eastern city. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and persistent pounding on the door of Vicky Chester was needed to awaken her. She was by trade a night spot hostess and had retired only an hour before. For a moment, Vicky sat on the edge of the bed. Then, as the door pounding persisted, she slipped on a light negligee and went to the door.
Oh, all right. Take it easy. 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, who is it?
Come on, let me in.
Who is it?
You don't know me.
Well, then a fine chance you got. I'd think twice before I let in somebody I know. Now, it's 5 o'clock. Go on away. I got a lot of sleep to catch up on.
I'm a friend of Pinky.
Oh. Yeah?
That's right. Come on, open up.
Pinky who?
Waldo, Pinky Waldo.
Just a second. Come in.
Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Excuse me for not being more formally dressed.
Don't bother me any.
Company was the last thing I expected at 5 o'clock in the morning.
You know, Pinky's sort of a magic word around here, huh?
Pinky and I meant a lot to each other. Did you see him in? Were you cellmates or something? How's he look?
I didn't even know Pinky was doing a bit until I tried to look him up tonight.
Oh?
You see, Pinky owes me a lot. He said if I ever got to this burg, it'd pay off. Looks as if I got to town too late.
Yeah, about a year too late. Or about 3 years too early, whichever way you want to look at it. Now, go on. I don't get much sleep as it is.
Did Pinky ever mention, Slim to you?
Slim?
Yeah.
You want Slim?
I'm Slim.
Well, sit down, Slim. Make yourself at home. Listen, if it weren't for you, I'd never even have met Pinky. He'd have been stuck away in some can in West Virginia.
It was in Ohio.
Yeah, that's... Say, who told you about me?
I heard about you.
Well, couldn't you wait until noon or sometime? Do you have to go pounding on doors at this hour? And incidentally, how'd you manage to get in the downstairs door? That's always locked.
I managed. Ain't that enough?
Yeah, I guess it is. What you want with Pinky?
I'm broke.
Well, don't look at me. I ain't no good for a touch.
No, it's not a touch I'm looking for. I just want somebody with connections to get me a heater.
Oh.
Who do you know?
Listen, Slim. You look like a nice guy, but I don't want to get mixed up in anything.
Well, what are you going to get mixed up in? All I want you to do is to tell me where I can get my hands on a gun, cheap.
Well,
Now, look, I'm trying to make enough to get to Arizona. There's a good deal waiting for me there. I had a bundle, but it was chump enough to get in a crap game in Jersey City. Took my last nickel to come here and look up Pinky.
Well, Pinky can't do you no good now, not from where he's sitting.
No, but you can. Come on now, how about it? Where can I get my hands on a gun?
All right, okay. I work at a joint called The Barrel over on...
Yeah, I know. I was there. It was closed.
Well, they got laws about closing, you know.
What about the heater?
You come around to The Barrel about 10 o'clock tonight. There's a guy I'll introduce you to.
He can take care of me?
If I recommend you, yeah.
Good.
You know, you ain't bad looking, you know.
I don't want to waste any time.
How long are you going to be around here, Slim?
Not any longer than I can help it.
Oh, yeah. Arizona.
You're sure that this connection can furnish me a gun?
Relax, Slim. You'll get your heater. Just come around to the joint tonight.
Listen, Vicky, I got no more dough to spend on drinks. Where is this clown?
You're always in a hurry, Slim. Sit still. He'll be here.
You're sure that he can take care of what I want?
You'll get to Arizona. Don't... Uh-huh. Didn't I tell you to have patience? There he is.
Him?
Yeah, him.
You don't look much like an operator.
Well, what do you care how he looks as long as he's got the goods? Wait till I give him the... Oh, he spotted me. Here he comes.
When I give you the high sign, blow.
Listen, you don't have to tell me. I don't want to get involved in any deal.
Hello, Vicky. How goes it? Selling lots of rat guts for the house?
I sell my share. Jack, Slim.
Hi.
Sit down, Jack.
Thanks. My feet are killing me.
Jack,
Yeah?
Slim's a friend of Pinky's.
Ah, you don't say.
I do say.
Well, any friend of Pinky's a friend of mine. Put it there, Slim.
Slim's got some business for you, Jack.
What can I do for you?
Look, boys. You'll excuse me. The boss is getting peeved. My sitting at one table so long.
Now, go ahead, kid. And thanks.
For what?
For a lot of things.
Okay. I'll float around later.
Nice girl, that Vicky. Sweet as they come.
We could talk about that all night.
Not me. Early to bed, early to rise. It's my motto. What can I do for you, Slim?
I want a heater. Cheap.
Cheap.
You heard me.
What I got was all hard to come by.
Oh, what have you got?
Anything you want. I aim to please.
What for around $20?
$20?
Yeah, that's all I'm going to spend.
Well, I got an old beat-up Colt 38 special. It ain't much good.
I'll take it.
I wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy.
I said I'll take it.
Okay. The customer's always right.
That's what you always say, huh?
Always. When do you want it?
Right now. Let's go.
You're in an awful hurry. Slim, ain't that right?
Yeah, that's right. Now, where's the gun? Gotta make me some dough beginning tonight.
Why rush? Haste makes waste. Why don't we have a drink on it?
Come on. Let's get the gun.
Okay. You're the doctor.
What do you say we take a turn up 80th, Sarge? Sure, Ed. Up and back and we'll call it a night, okay?
Yeah, I got...
Hey. Look at that. Yeah. Kind of late for anyone to be huddled in a doorway.
Let's have a peek at him, eh? Stay here and cover me, Sarge.
Right, Ed.
Hey, buddy. We're police officers with...
That's far enough. Watch him! Oh! Police officer! Oh! Oh!
All right. Take it easy. Yeah, what do you want?
It's me, Slim. Open up.
Oh. How many times do I have to tell you? 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm asleep like all these...
Yeah. I was in the neighborhood, Vicky.
Well, it's a fine reason.
Well, I'm in a jam. I want to stay here a few hours.
What kind of a jam?
The worst kind. Believe me.
Oh, well, then, look, you better get out of here.
I can't go out on the street. Not right now.
Now, listen, Slim, Pinky or no Pinky, enough's enough. I don't want trouble.
What kind of trouble can you get keeping me here a few hours?
Well, I don't know. What kind?
What do you say we sit down?
All right, why not? I guess you'll be leaving for Arizona a lot quicker now, huh?
What makes you think so?
Well, you get a gun, you get in trouble. The worst kind of trouble.
Suppose we forget about my trouble.
Okay, Slim. I hate trouble anyway.
Come here, Vicky.
Oh, Slim. Well. What do you think Pinky will have to say about that?
Who cares? Let him say anything he likes.
So, Gangbusters listeners, as police were searching the neighborhood for the killer, the murderer, John Slim Patterson, had found a place to hide for a few hours. As he enjoyed the company of one woman, he had no idea another would be called upon to play an important part in bringing this case to a conclusion.
Now back to Gangbusters. Here again is the narrator of tonight's case, Assistant United States Attorney Frederick H. Block.
As I was saying, the criminal, John Slim Patterson obtained a gun and used it to murder a detective. As the search began and the alarm spread, Sergeant Earl Howard was standing in the corridor at the hospital, where the detective's body was taken. He heard steps approaching and looked up to see Detective Captain Frank Delaney.
Hello, Sergeant.
Captain, he's dead, Captain. He was dead on arrival.
Yes, I heard. What about his family? They've been notified?
Yes, they're all in there.
I'd like to talk to him. Come on.
Helen Branch. She's a policewoman attached to the forgery squad. She's a friend of the family, Captain. She brought them.
Yes, I know that.
Maybe it'd be best if I took you back home. There's nothing you can do here. Oh, excuse me, dear. Hello, Sergeant. Have you heard? Did they get the killer yet?
No, not yet.
How are you, Captain?
Helen, do you think it'd be all right if I talked with her a minute?
I think so. I think she'd appreciate it.
Suppose we step outside, Helen.
All right, Sergeant. That's an awful thing. For them to wake her in the middle of the night. For them to tell her husband's dead.
Yes, I can imagine.
Every time he went out on duty, she was afraid it would happen. For years, every day she was afraid. Now she doesn't have to be afraid anymore.
Look, Helen, when you go back in, would you tell her we're doing everything we can to get the killer?
I wish I could be assigned to it. I wish I could do something.
It's going to be a tough job.
If there's ever anything I can do, call on me. Promise you'll call on me, Sergeant.
All right, Helen. I promise.
Captain Delaney. Oh, yes. What does it look like? Oh, that's... Oh. Come in, Sergeant. That old, huh? Okay, if you run anything else, give me a call.
Hello, Captain.
Sit down, Sergeant.
Thanks.
That was a report of the bullet that killed Ed.
Oh?
It was a .38 caliber slug. Apparently it came from a Colt Special. 40-year-old Colt Special, at least 40. The grooves run counterclockwise in the slug.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't made that type of gun in 40 years. What's new with you?
Oh, nothing much. We spent all day shaking down rooming houses in the neighborhood. Not a trace of them.
Well, I imagine he's still in town, Earl. The publicity this thing's getting ought to keep him pretty close to his room. And pretty scared.
Captain, I'd like to try something.
What?
Well, maybe this guy has a room in that neighborhood. Maybe he hasn't. Seems to me more of a cinch that he's been hanging out in one of the joints down there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, suppose I pack a bag and visit a few of them. Suppose I get the word around that I'm a hot customer from Philly.
Maybe you got an idea, Earl.
I don't think there's anything to lose except a little time. And maybe I can make connections that'll lead me to the right guy.
Okay, Earl. Have a try at it.
Like I was saying, boys, what's another drink? You buy me a drink and I'll be... what?
Telephone.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, will you, fellas?
Yeah, sure. Go on back.
Oh, hiya, Jack.
Run over and sit down, Vicky. Once you meet a guy.
I got a call on the phone right now. I'll be right back.
Okay, but don't forget.
Telephone. Some guys ought to know better than call you during working hours. Hello?
Vicky.
Yeah. Who is this?
Slim.
Slim, I thought you'd be halfway to Arizona by now.
Well, I decided to stick around till things cool off. Look, Vicky, I gotta see you.
Listen, Pinky won't be a friend of yours if he finds out what's been going on.
Forget about Pinky.
Well, look, why don't you drop in here to the joint? Jack's here and...
You think I'm crazy?
All right. I get through here in about another hour or so. How about me dropping around to your place? Where is it?
Never mind.
Well, okay, if that's the way you feel about it, Mr. Slim, goodbye. Fine thing.
Hey, Vicky, come on, I'll buy you a drink.
I'll see you later. Hey, Jack. You know who...
Sit down, Vicky.
Who's your friend here?
This is Earl, just Earl.
Glad to see you.
He's hot out of Philly. He's a friend of Big Jake.
Is that so?
Harder than a $2 pistol.
Listen, I wouldn't go shouting it all over the joint. Now, look, Jack, the guys in Philly said you could help me get a room. I can't go lugging the suitcase all over town.
I told you I'd help you get a room. You know of any place, Vicky?
I don't know of any place. Jack, you know who that was on the phone?
Oh.
Slim.
Slim? I thought he'd be in Arizona by now.
Well, the operator didn't say nothing about long distance.
Hey, you're not going to be like this guy Slim, are you, Earl? I do the guy a favor and he gets himself all jammed up.
Jack.
What's the matter? I didn't do him a favor?
If you call making some dough off a guy a favor.
How much could I make? He wouldn't give me more than 20 for the gun.
Oh, let's talk about something else.
Yeah, room for me, for instance.
Hey, maybe we can get him Slim's room. Slim's leaving for Arizona.
Well, I don't know where Slim's staying.
Ah, come on, Vicky. Don't kid your Uncle Jack. You've been seeing Slim.
I don't know where he lives. What do you want from me?
Ain't the way I heard it.
I don't care how you heard it.
Look, this ain't getting me anyplace.
The guy's hot around town, Earl. He's got a deal out in Arizona. He wants to get out as quick as he can. If she'll open up and tell me where he is, I'll fix it.
I told you, I don't know.
Okay, I can't sit around all night with a suitcase.
Then I can't do you no good. If I could, I would. I can't.
Well, what do you say we all take a ride downtown?
I can't go nowheres. I don't get off for another hour. And what am I doing in your troubles anyway? Find your own room.
Oh, you don't get it, Vicky. This is a pinch. I'm a police officer.
What?
I don't want any disturbance. Come on, both of you.
Listen, I didn't do nothing.
What do you want me for? I'm as innocent as a newborn babe.
Let's just go downtown. We'll get it all straightened out.
Straighten it out. All right.
Well, Captain, I'll put away for the night.
Well, I think they've told us everything they know.
Yes, so do I.
Sit down, Earl.
Thanks.
It was a nice piece of work.
Yeah, a lot of good it does. After I covered all those joints to find him. All I know him by is Slim.
Yeah.
Don't know where he lives. And might be headed for Arizona any minute.
I wonder what this guy has in Arizona.
I don't know, but whatever it is, Captain, he sure wants to get to it.
Yes. He knows he'll have a tough time getting out of this town. Earl?
Yes, Captain?
I think I'll have a policewoman assigned to this case.
Helen Branch?
Didn't she tell you she'd like to do something?
She practically begged to help.
Okay, get her on the phone. Maybe there is something she can do.
What's that, Captain?
This Slim, whoever he is, wants to get to Arizona. He knows we've got a good idea of what he looks like. He knows we've got the railroad stations and the buses watched. He's read about the roadblocks. Chances are he's too scared to step out of his room.
Yeah, but what's that got to do with Helen Branch?
He gets the papers, for sure. And holed up in that room, he probably reads every word. If you were wanted for killing a policeman, you were trying to get to Arizona, what would you do if you read an ad in the paper that went something like this? Wanted, young man to drive new automobile to Arizona. Phone Mrs. Helen Branch, Central.
Hey, Captain, that's the ticket.
Okay, get hold of Helen and tell her what we've got in mind.
You betcha, Captain, right away.
What do you think, Sergeant? Do you think he didn't see the ad?
Maybe, Helen.
It's in this morning's paper. If he hasn't seen it by now... Oh, well, I guess it's too much to hope for.
And you know how it is in this business. You've got to wait and wait and then wait some more. Then if nothing comes of the idea, we try something else.
And you think it's no use?
Well, we'll let the ad run tomorrow, too. If that...
That's it.
All right, now, take it easy.
I will.
If it's him, hand it like we planned.
All right.
Okay, pick it up.
Hello?
Oh, is this Mrs. Helen Branch?
Yes, talking.
You're the one who put the ad in this morning's Times?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, I'll be glad to drive your car to Arizona. The ad didn't say, are you going along or is it going empty?
Well, I'm going along. I just didn't want to do all the driving.
Oh, when were you counting on leaving?
Tomorrow sometime.
Well, that's okay with me.
We'll have to exchange references, I suppose. Why don't you come over? I live at...
I can't make it just now.
Oh, well, can we meet someplace?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to.
Do you want to give me your name and phone number?
Well, suppose we meet at 7 o'clock. Downtown on the corner of Maine and Commerce. You know, in front of the drugstore.
But how'll I know you?
Well, what's your car look like?
Oh, it's a new Pontiac four-door, green.
Pontiac four-door green. Okay. All right, then I'll see you. Maine and Commerce, 7 o'clock. My name is Slim.
Hello? Hello? Hello. He said his name was Slim.
Good work, Helen.
I'm to meet him on the corner of Main and Commerce, 7 o'clock, in front of the drugstore.
He'll be met, all right. Well, let's talk to the captain. But you better answer it just to make sure.
Hello?
This is Captain Delaney, Helen. Would you let me talk to Sergeant Howard, please?
He's right here, Sergeant.
Thanks. Hello, Captain.
I heard the conversation. Looks like the boy.
How about it? Were they able to trace the call?
Well, it hasn't come through yet, but... Just a second. What was that? Okay, there's a squad of detectives down there. Have them take a look around. Earl.
Yeah?
Call came from B station, the B section.
Well, that doesn't help much. He's probably gone by now.
Tell her she'll have to meet the killer tonight. But tell her not to worry. We'll have every man we can spare in the neighborhood.
Here again is the narrator of tonight's case, Assistant United States Attorney Frederick H. Block.
In the darkness of that winter evening, the policewoman, Helen Branch, drove to the busy corner to keep her appointment with a killer. However, she was not entirely alone. The neighborhood swarmed with detectives on the alert for their man, and Sergeant Earl Howard was out of sight on the floor of the car, behind the seat, as she reached the rendezvous.
We're lucky. There's a parking space.
All right, pull in. Now turn off the motor.
I don't see him, Sergeant.
Well, if he's here, he'll take a little time to look around.
Just doesn't seem... Sergeant, there's a man. He's coming.
Does he fit the description?
I can't tell yet. Yes, he does.
Okay, don't talk to me anymore. A lady.
Just a second.
I'm Slim. You the lady that's going to Arizona?
Yes, I'm the one.
Well, move over. I'll get in. We can talk about it.
Well, suppose
All
we...
right, Slim. Hey, police officer, don't move.
Now, look out.
Slim, take it easy.
Yeah, well, I...
Watch him!
Oh, you don't.
Good, that ought to hold him, Captain.
Take care of this guy, man.
All right.
Come on, you get on.
Nice work, Helen.
Thanks, Captain.
All right, men. Let's get him in.
That, Gangbusters listeners, was exactly how this killer was apprehended. He was tried for the crime of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. The man who sold him the gun, an almost equal menace to society, is now serving a life term as an habitual criminal.
Well, thank you, Assistant United States Attorney Frederick H. Block, for this enlightening case history. And Gangbusters, congratulations to all the detectives who participated in the investigation and to the brave policewoman who was of such great assistance in trapping this murderer. Tonight's case was dramatized by Stanley Niss and directed by William Sweets, with Miss Leslie Woods and Chuck Webster in leading roles. Don Gardner speaking.
Big we hail. From New York City, where the American stage begins, here is another program with a cast of outstanding players. Public service time has been made available by this station for your Army and your Air Force to bring you this story, as proudly we hail freedom. Thomas Paine, a true story of one of America's greatest exponents of freedom. Our first act curtain will rise in just a moment, but first... Today, your rapidly expanding United States Army needs intelligent young men with ability and ambition. Men intelligent enough to recognize the vital need for a strong armed force. Men with ability enough to be trained in a necessary job. Men with ambition enough to secure the future for themselves and their loved ones. Does this description fit you? Can you qualify? For full information on how you can fit in with the finest, Check with your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station now. And now your Army and your Air Force present the proudly we hail production, Thomas Paine. This is the story about a man named Paine, Tom Paine. It's a story about our country, too, about its birth. It's page 1 in the book of our heritage, a page no American will ever forget. Tom Paine's name isn't remembered as well as many of the names on that page, but what he did and believed had a lot to do with its writing. Fact is, some people feel without him, that page might not have been written at all. This is our story. The month was November, the year 1774, when Tom Paine first set foot on the soil of America. He came from England, arriving in Philadelphia a sick and nearly penniless man. With him, he had a letter of introduction from Ben Franklin. Aside from that, he had little else but the clothes on his back. Now he stepped into a land that was trembling with revolt, set up with domination and tyranny. Tom Paine looked at what he saw, listened to what he heard, placed his fingers on the pulse of a rumbling America, and knew its beat. He was an uncommon man who could talk to common men, could listen to their words with understanding. In Tom Paine burned the hope of America.
I speak plain, and I'm afeard of no man on land or sea. I say 'tis time we were rid of the lobster bat. Time we sailed our own ship and done with a helmsman who don't know port from starboard.
The captain speaks true. And I say the captain's a spouting fool.
Belay there, my dandy, before I study you.
Just where would you ungrateful dogs be were it not for the grace and kindness of His Majesty?
Why, I'd say we'd be right where we are now and far happier about it.
I know you not, sir, and I like not your words nor your ugly face.
My face is God's work. My words are my own, and I speak them as I please. And as for knowing me, there would be no benefit in it for you.
That's the kind of talk I like. A drink for the stranger.
You'll not find such talk so enlightening in a king's jail or dangling from a gibbet.
The king has many jails and many gibbets.
Aye, and one day you murderous dogs will grace them.
Fast, you, before I break your jaw. Take your fine talk elsewhere. I'll hear no more of it.
Go tell the king his royal subjects are tired of his ways.
You've not heard the last of this.
Only the beginning, my friend. Only the beginning.
I know you not, sir, but shake your hand I will. I'm Captain Josiah Clark of the Sea Witch out of Boston.
How do you do, Captain? I'm Thomas Paine, late of England.
Come in.
Good day, Mr. Aiken. I'm Paine, Tom Paine.
Hey, so I gather. Sit down, sir. I read the letter you brought from Mr. Franklin. You found him where I trust.
I found him, sir.
Good. And now what service can I be to you? I suppose you want to borrow money?
No, Mr. Aiken, I wish to borrow nothing. I heard that you were starting a magazine. I should like to write for it.
You don't tell me. And just what has been your profession?
Well, I'm a staymaker by trade. I've also been a tinker, sailor, tax collector, carpenter, teacher, writer of sorts, and a general failure.
Nor do you lack frankness.
No, nor do I lack frankness.
Well, it's true. I'm going to publish a magazine. The Pennsylvania magazine, to be exact. Is that some of your writing you brought with you?
Yes, it is, sir.
Well, leave it with me and come in tomorrow, Mr. Paine. We shall discuss this further.
Thank you, sir, and good day.
Good day, Mr. Paine.
No, Tom Paine didn't lack frankness nor ability. He became the first editor of Robert Aitken's Pennsylvania magazine, and in a very short time made it the most widely read publication, not just in Pennsylvania, but in all the colonies. Then, 5 short months after his arrival, the seething volcano of growing discontent toward the mother country erupted. The date, April 19, 1775. It was 5 days later that a rider from the north galloped into Philadelphia. He pulled up before the city tavern and began shouting the news.
It started! It started! It's war! War! What are you shouting about, man? A war, I said. They fought at Concord and then at Lexington and drove the bloody lobsterbacks plumb back into Boston.
Yeah, get the man a drink and maybe he'll make some sense.
Lexington, Concord, where's that? In Massachusetts, you blamed idiot. Who drove the lobsterbacks into Boston? Who? The farmers, that's who. They licked them fair. It's war, brother, war!
So, gentlemen, at last it's come. I knew it must, sooner or later.
But, Tom, what concerns Massachusetts does not concern Pennsylvania.
What concerns Massachusetts, Mr. Aiken, not only concerns us, it concerns the whole world.
Oh, come, Paine. Of course we want our differences with England straightened out, but bloodshed, this wild talk of independence is serious. It can't be rushed into. It must be considered.
And you, Mr. Johnson, are a fool to talk to. 'Twas more than a spark setting off a bonfire that happened at Lexington and Concord. That spark must not be allowed to die. It must become an inferno. Lexington was not just an act of man. I believe it an act of God. And it is a sacred duty of all of us to join this struggle. Consider it, you say. I say there is nothing left to consider. Let us act upon it now.
Union and independence at this time are out of the question.
Perhaps for you, gentlemen. But as for me, you will please accept my resignation. I have more important work to do.
So Tom Paine left the Pennsylvania Magazine and with a few shillings in his pocket set out on his important work, to write the case of America against tyranny. It was his practice during those first unsettled and confused months to stroll out from the city along the country roads. In this scene of peace and quiet, he'd go over in his mind just what this armed uprising was all about, what caused it, what could be gained by it. It was on such a stroll that he first met Sarah Rumpels.
What right has any man... Oh, no. But if the cause be... Oh, I beg your pardon.
Oh, aren't you the one having a terrible argument all by yourself, weren't you?
Yes, madam, I suppose I was. I had thought I was alone out here.
Oh, no, I saw you from the house. I've seen you walking by before. And it's such a hot scorcher of a day. I thought you might like a glass of buttermilk.
Well, you're very kind, miss. It is a hot day, and I certainly would like a cool glass of buttermilk.
My name is Sarah Rumpels. That's McCaw's farm right there.
Oh. My name is Thomas Paine.
Paine? You're the one who writes all those things in that magazine. Well, Pa will certainly want to meet you. Pa, Tom Paine's come to pay us a call.
Well, Mr. Aiken?
Tom, we've been friends since that first day you walked in here. Now, I've read this common sense of yours, and I shall not take the responsibility of printing it.
But, Mr. Aiken,
you speak treason and expect me to be a part of it. No, Tom, I'm sorry. I am not the man for you.
Well, Mr. Rush?
A very rebellious piece of writing, Mr. Paine, and one I shall not jeopardize myself in printing. I cannot help but admit I admire what you have done, but...
Won't take the chance. Treasonous.
Can't afford the risk.
No.
Why don't you try the Scot, Robert Bell?
Robert Bell? Robert Bell?
Mr. Paine, I've read your wee book. It's a brave piece of scribbling. How much of a royalty would you be expecting if I were to undertake the job?
I want no money. I did not write it for money, Mr. Bell. Print my book. Print it, and I shall have reward enough.
Aye, Mr. Paine, that I will.
In January of 1776, without fanfare or introduction, there appeared the booklet entitled Common Sense, written by an Englishman. It shot like a ray of sunlight through a dark overcast. It was printed and reprinted throughout the 13 colonies. 300,000 copies. 1/3 of the entire population owned it and no one can say how many more read it. And just what did Tom Paine say? What did he say to inspire men toward the distant goal of independence?
The sun never shone on a cause of greater worth. 'Tis not the affair of a city, a county, a province, or a kingdom, but of a continent of at least 1/8 part of the habitable globe. O ye that love mankind, ye that dare oppose not only tyranny, but the tyrant, stand forth. Every spot of the old world is overrun with oppression. Freedom has been hunted around the globe. Asia and Africa have long expelled her. Europe regards her like a stranger, and England has given her warning to depart. Oh, receive the fugitive, and prepare in time an asylum for mankind.
Overnight, the name of Tom Paine and his books swept through the slowly awakening colonies. Tom Paine had struck the heart of the people. He had given them the will, the reasons, and the ultimate result of their bid for freedom. He wrote in words they all understood. He could have accepted a position in the government, but instead he chose to fight for what he believed. But before he left, he went to say goodbye to Sarah.
Good day, Tom.
Good day, sir.
You've come to say goodbye.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
You're going away to the fighting.
Yes, I must.
I knew you would.
Sarah, maybe someday I'll come back.
Maybe you will, Tom. You'll always be welcome here. And in my heart. Will you kiss me goodbye?
You are listening to the Proudly We Hail production of Thomas Paine. We'll return to our story in just a moment. Young man, let's talk about your future and America's future. They're important to each other, you know. Today, your United States Army is charged with a vital responsibility. You need only to glance at your local newspaper to realize how vital. And to meet this responsibility, the Army is rapidly expanding its forces. They have a job for you, a job that must be done by men of courage. You can get full details of how you may best serve your future and your country's future by a visit to your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station today. You are listening to Proudly We Hail, and now we present the second act of Thomas Paine. Tom Paine found the Army, what was left of it, at Fort Lee, across from the island of Manhattan. There it lay, licking its wounds after being cut to pieces and thrown off of Long Island, battered at Harlem, and again at Westchester, losing Fort Washington. From 20,000 men, it had shrunk to 12,000, and the number growing less daily, as many deserted the cause they had so bravely taken up.
Mr. Paine, General Washington will see you now. Go right in.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Paine, we meet again.
And a pleasure, sir, I assure you.
You do not come upon us at a happy hour. How can I serve you?
It is I who have come to ask that question of you.
You have come to join us, then? Good. I thought you would. I have need of your common sense, and badly. The men are angry, bitter, discouraged. They've known nothing but defeat. We are new to this kind of life, and we're learning painfully. What kind of position would you choose in my army?
General Washington, I am not a soldier, and therefore I want no position of rank. Let me go among the men and talk to them. Let me be one of them. Let me be Tom Paine, volunteer. No more.
I don't know whether your words will be listened to here, but you have my permission to try. You have not picked an easy task. I, for one, welcome you in any capacity.
And so Tom Paine went amongst the men, and as Washington had said, they were in no mood to hear words.
Did you expect to win your freedom easily in a few battles? Did you expect to buy it cheap?
I've had a belly full of your mouth, Paine. Common sense or no. Now you can have a belly full of my flesh.
If you want my fists as well as my words, you're welcome to them. I say any man who deserts this cause now is no man at all, but a gutless, craven coward.
And where were you, Tom Paine, at Long Island?
I was not there. But I'm here now, and I'll be here as long as there's breath in me.
Well, I'll save mine and go home.
Then go, and may your soul shrivel inside your worthless carcass.
No man can speak to me like that.
I'll call you every foul name I can think of, and all of them too good for you.
Get up out of the mud, Mr. Paine, and I'll knock you down again.
I no fear. And when you're through, go home. Go home to your wife.
Wait, have done, will you? I cannot fight with you. I can knock the sense out of you. But you'll be only knocking common sense into me. Enough, I say. Let him speak his piece.
Fort Lee captured. The long retreat begins. Despite Tom's words, desertion and more desertion. Down through hostile New Jersey they march, the English snarling at their heels. Retreat. Retreat. Retreat.
Hold up, I say. Hey, you there! Get back in the ranks. No need to shout. This man is ill. Here, give us a hand. Easy, Jacob. Put his arm around your neck.
Retreat. Retreat. Why must we always retreat? Let me lie down. Let me lie down.
Sam. Hi, Tom. See if there can be found a room in one of the wagons for Jacob. He's done in.
I shall go no further. I'll make an end of retreating here now, and I'll let go of
Easy.
Molly. I'm afraid he's about done.
Only that we're a dry place for him.
Tom.
Hi, Jacob.
I didn't leave you, Tom. You stayed.
I know, Jacob.
But I gotta leave you now.
Nonsense, Jake. When the sun comes out, you'll be fine again.
The sun. The warm sun. What I wouldn't give for a look at it. You know, Tom, the sun is like liberty. Bright. Like gold. Now, nothing but rain. Cold. The sun went out.
No, Jacob. No. It's hiding behind a cloud, that's all.
I must lie down. He's fainted.
Yes. Let me put him down.
Tom Paine. Look there. I see the sun. There. Yonder. He's gone.
He's gone.
Jacob Haskell was gone, and many others with him, many not so bravely, walking off in the night alone or in groups. And those that remained continued to retreat, slowly, painfully, winter upon them. It wasn't difficult for the English to follow, with bloody footprints marking their way.
Tom, I sent for you because I need you as I never have. Our plight is desperate. We number little more than 2,000 men. I fear we shall have to retreat west into the mountains unless something is done soon. We need food, we need ammunition, we need men. The colonies must be made fully aware of our circumstances. You must write another common sense. Write and tell them, Tom. Congress must know, the people must know. Do what you can.
Evening, Fred. Well, evening, Tom. You sit here and you won't be freezing your bones so fast.
What did the general want, Tom? Lady Sam. Dad, can I use your drum?
Aye, that you can, Tom. You going to play us a jig?
I'm going to write you one. God willing.
Hey, Tom Paine's going to write us a jig.
Give us some common sense now, boy.
There in the flickering firelight, with the cold winter wind whipping about him, a drum between his knees with its head for a table, he wrote them a jig that was a symphony. He wrote them immortal words that shall live in time as a beacon light for all freedom-loving people.
These are the times that try men's souls. The sunshine soldier and the summer patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have the consolation.
Tom left the Army shortly after the first of the year to take the job of Secretary of the Congressional Committee of Foreign Affairs. He continued to write more crisis papers. What he wrote not only inspired, it made sense to even the simplest mind. He stayed on at this job until the Battle of Brandywine Creek in September 1777. It was a disastrous battle for the American cause. Philadelphia now lay open to the English. The city was gripped with fear. And Paine wrote another crisis paper and stayed on, exhorting, pleading with those who left.
The strongest fort an army can have is a city. Every street can be a death trap for the enemy. We can hold this city, and we must. Banish the fear from your heart, I say. It is not too late. Stand here with me now.
Only a few listened, not enough. Tories tried to assassinate him, and finally, at the last minute, with the Hessians entering the city, he went to seek out the army. He was with the army at Germantown. Tom was with him at Fort Mifflin, too. Fort Mercer. He was there through the hard autumn of defeat, doing what he could. While Lord Howe enjoyed the comforts of Philadelphia, the men at Valley Forge knew no comfort. Only bitter cold, suffering, and death.
Tom, you can do no good here. Only one more to feed, only another man suffering, and God knows there are already too many. Go find the Congress, Tom. Go find them wherever they are. Tell them I must have help if I'm to go on. The same story. If anything worse now than the winter before. I sometimes wonder how we've endured so long.
He found the Congress at York, and they welcomed him. He stayed on with them, laboring through the winter day and night, writing more crisis papers, wrangling shipments of food for the army, tireless and unceasing in his efforts. Another spring, and the 4,000 survivors of the long winter at Valley Forge were joined by 8,000 new recruits. Again, the armies took the field. At Monmouth, in the colony of New Jersey, they met.
All right! Spread out along that trench! Check your fighting!
At Monmouth, the cause of America, freedom, was the cause of all mankind.
Stand easy! This time we don't run!
It stood and it held. And for the first time in nearly 3 years, put to flight its proud enemy. The war didn't end there at Monmouth. It took another 5 bitter years of fighting to do that, but a lot of folks feel that Monmouth was the turning point. But through it all, to the very end, Tom Paine continued to labor with his pen, his mind, and his voice. His energy and faith were tireless. And finally, the day for which he had so long labored did come. And he was able to write,
"The times that tried men's souls are over, and the greatest and completest revolution the world ever knew, gloriously and happily accomplished."
That's not the whole story of Tom Paine's life, but it's the part that most directly affects us. Between that time and this, much has happened. But the basic belief for which men fought and died in those days are the same beliefs we uphold today. We owe so much to those gallant men. And it's often been said, If George Washington was the sword of the American Revolution, Tom Paine was the pen.
These are the times that try men's souls. The sunshine soldier and the summer patriot will in this crisis shrink from his duty. But he who stands it now deserves the love.
Here's a special message for the young men of our country. The United States Army, the senior service of our armed forces, is expanding rapidly and needs your help. By enlisting in the United States Army, you'll not only get the finest training in the world, but you'll have the special pride that goes with wearing a United States Army uniform. Why not get full details today? Visit your local United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting stations. Enlist now. This has been another program on Proudly We Hail, presented transcribed in cooperation with this station. Proudly We Hail is produced by the Recruiting Publicity Bureau for the United States Army and United States Air Force Recruiting Service. This is Kenneth Banghart speaking and inviting you to tune in this same station next week for another interesting story on Proudly We Hail.
Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to spend the next half hour listening to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And I'd like to tell you about something you ought to share with your family before dinner. And that's Petri California Sherry. Because Petri Sherry can make that time before dinner a high spot in your day. That Petri Sherry is a truly fine wine. Its color is a deep amber, rich and inviting. And the wine is wonderfully smooth and full-bodied. Flavor, just swell. Honestly, I mean it when I say the best beginning a good meal ever had is a glass of Petri Sherry. Oh, and look, if some of your family like their sherry dry, not sweet, they'll really like Petri Pale Dry Sherry. So to be sure you please everyone, don't buy one, buy two. Buy the regular Petri Sherry and Petri Pale Dry Sherry. And be sure you look for those letters P-E-T-R-I, because they spell the proudest name in the history of American wines, Petri. And now I know our good friend Dr. Watson's expecting us. Let's go in and join him.
Come in.
Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell.
Say, how are you feeling, Doctor? All over that attack of flu you had?
I'm feeling very much better, thank you, my boy. I'm still a little weak. We old fossils take much longer to get over that sort of thing than you young fellows.
Well, you take good care of yourself, Doctor. You've got a lot of friends, you know.
Oh, I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you, Mr. Bartell. And now settle yourself down, and I'll get on with tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure.
Where did it take place?
You may not be familiar with the names of Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney, and Sark, but those are the four principal islands that make up the group known as the Channel Islands.
Oh, yes, Doctor, I have heard of them. They're somewhere in the English Channel, aren't they? Between the southern coast of England and the northern coast of France?
That's quite right, my boy, though I very much doubt if you ever heard of the tiny island on which this story happened. It was the island of Garth, a minute but self-contained spot with a population of just under 1,000 inhabitants, subsisting, and from what I saw of the island in those days, subsisting very well on its dairy products.
Was it under the rule of the British government, Doctor?
No, Mr. Bartell, not exactly. You see, the island belonged to a family by the name of Horn. The head of the family, who was known as the Seigneur of Garth, was an independent ruler owing nominal allegiance to the King of England. That allegiance was expressed by one of those traditional ceremonies in which the Seigneur annually presented 1 pound of freshly churned butter to a representative of the British Crown.
Times haven't changed much, have they, Doctor? Pound of butter is still worth a king's ransom. But tell me, what were you and the great Sherlock Holmes doing on the island of Garth?
Well, I just coming to that, my boy, if you'll give me a minute. It was in the summer of 1896 when, to my utter amazement, Holmes informed me that we were going to the island of Garth as the official representatives of the British Crown to accept the annual presentation of butter. At the time, I must confess, I couldn't see why Holmes wanted to accept such a ridiculous mission. It was only as we approached the island in a small fishing boat that he told me a great deal more was at stake than a pound of butter. Unfortunately, Mr. Bartell, I'm not much of a sailor, and as the wind was blowing hard and the sea racing, I'm afraid I wasn't a very intelligent companion.
Cheer up, Watson. We'll soon be there.
I hope so. I feel wretched, Holmes. I must say the whole trip seems utterly ridiculous to me. Plunging and bobbing about in a little boat in a raging torrent just because somebody wants to give somebody else a pound of butter.
Dear old Watson, you don't really think our mission is so innocuous, do you?
Then why are we going to the island of Garth?
We're going to the island of Garth at the express wish of its present ruler, Martha Horn.
Martha Horn? I never heard of her.
She's an extremely spirited old lady. And the only woman who dared tell a certain resident of Windsor Castle that she looked devilishly dowdy for an empress.
Great Scott, you mean that
I mean, Watson, that Martha Horn's behests are not lightly disregarded. Obviously, she wishes to see me urgently. Also, my brother Mycroft put pressure on me. He reminded me that a visit to Garth might be closely allied to this emerald tie pin I wear. Of course, you recall the origin of this pin.
Well, naturally. That lady at Windsor Castle gave it to you after our little trouble last year over those stolen plans for the Bruce Partington submarine.
Exactly, my dear fellow. But remember that the spy Oberstein had put those plans up for auction in all the naval centers of Europe. Some hint of their nature must have leaked out. It's even possible that other powers may be able by now to duplicate the pride of our submarine fleet. And whoever controls the channel, Watson, controls England.
Well, they're dropping anchor, and yet we're still a quarter of a mile out from the island. Why do you think they're doing that?
Here comes the skipper. He'll tell us.
Here is as close to the island as we may approach, monsieur. We have already sent signals. A smaller boat is putting out for you. It will be here in a little while.
Thank you.
A smaller boat? Good Lord. Holmes, you were hinting at the naval significance of the island of Garth.
Yes, old chap, I was.
Well, what good would it be as a port if even a small boat like this can only come within half a mile of it?
For a surface, yes or no, but we were speaking of submarines. Garth, I learned from the encyclopedia, boasts a magnificent interior cavern accessible only through underwater channels.
Great Scott, an ideal natural harbor and dry dock for a submarine fleet.
Precisely. And on the control of the island of Garth, Watson, may well rest the fate of the British Isles. Now, old chap, perhaps you see why Mycroft was so anxious for us to collect a pound of butter.
Doesn't it seem wonderful to be on land again? First the fishing smack, and then that wretched little rowing boat. Then the bucket swinging us up the face of the cliff. Now at last I can stretch my legs.
Steady, old chap, steady. Let me give you a hand. You'll soon get your land legs back again.
Thank you. I'm a bit shaky, I must confess. Hello? Who's that couple walking towards us?
Our welcoming committee, no doubt. How do you do?
Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Permit me to present myself. I am Dr. Hugo Oberwald.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do, Doctor?
And this is Mrs. Reeves, the housekeeper at Horn Castle, where you will be staying.
How do you do?
How do you do, Mrs. Reeves?
Welcome to the island of Garth, gentlemen.
You are deputed to come and greet you back to the castle. We can walk there across the cliff tops. It isn't very far.
Splendid. I think my friend will appreciate traveling on terra firma once again.
Dear me, Herr Doctor. You are not a good sailor, perhaps?
No, perhaps about it, sir. I had a miserable crossing.
I am sorry to hear it. I trust your short stay at the castle will be some recompense for the journey.
The formal presentation of the butter will take place tonight. There will be no reason why you gentlemen cannot return to the mainland tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Reeves, but it's more than likely that we shall stay on for a few days.
Oh, it will be quite unnecessary.
I'm afraid that is a matter for Mrs. Horn and ourselves to decide.
I'm afraid that Mrs. Horn is incapable of making any further decisions.
Oh, what do you mean, madam?
Obviously, you have not heard, but the news is slow in reaching the mainland. Mrs. Horn died yesterday.
Died?
Good Lord. A natural death, I suppose.
But, of course,
I attended her myself. A simple case of heart failure.
the poor lady died in her sleep.
Shall we begin our walk to the castle?
By Jove, Holmes, this changes things. You suppose it was a natural death?
I suppose nothing, old fellow. But in almost 20 years of practice, I can recall precisely 3 clients, actual or potential, who died natural deaths. Come on, let's follow them.
Dr. Watson, this is Mr. Christopher Horn, grandson of Mrs. Horn and the new ruler of Gar.
How do you do?
Hello.
You do, sir.
It's very nice of you fellows to come over here. Too bad you had to arrive just as the poor old gal kicked the bucket, though.
Allow me to offer my condolences on your grandmother's death, sir.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Horn.
Thank you. It was a ghastly business. I found her, you know.
Christopher.
Frightful sight. There was an awful silly grin on the old dear's face, and...
Don't you think it would be more to the point if you were to explain the ceremony in connection with tonight's presentation?
Oh, you're right, Phoebe. Reeve is a terrible tyrant, but she is efficient. Don't know what I'd do without her. Always ran everything for poor old Granny. Why, when the old girl was ill, she...
Christopher, I gave you a schedule of the ceremonies this morning. What did you do with it?
Dash it, Reeve, I don't know. Must have lost it.
And I have my own copy in the study.
I swear I don't know what I'd do without you.
Excuse us a moment, gentlemen.
I'll be back, Mr. Pitt.
Holmes, what in thunder is going on here? That boy's completely under the thumb of Mrs. Reeves. He was trying to tell us something, but that frightful woman kept changing the subject.
He spoke with an awful, silly grin on the dead woman's face. Didn't that suggest something to you?
By Jove, that's one of the characteristic symptoms of strychnine poisoning.
Exactly, old fellow. And perhaps he was going on to mention the equally characteristic arching of the body. We've got to get Mr. Horn to ourselves for a little while, and you've got to examine the body of the dead woman. And it's going to be difficult. Is there a balcony outside the window? Yes, it is. Come along. Let's see what it leads to.
The balcony seems to lead right round this particular wing of the castle. Must have served as a lookout in the olden days. I wish the balcony were a little wider. It must be a sheer drop of a couple of 100 feet down to the rocks below.
Yeah. Hello. These must be the windows of the room adjoining the one we just came out of. Let's go a little closer, shall we? We may be able to find out something.
Can you see anything?
Yes. They're in there. Mrs. Reeves and the boy. She's leaving the room. Now's our opportunity. I'll tap on the window.
He's seen it. He's coming to open it.
What are you two doing out there? Admiring the view?
Yes, my boy. It's quite beautiful.
Mr. Horn.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
I was a great admirer of your grandmother. I was interested in what you were telling me of her death. She had a grin on her face, you said.
Yes, it was awful. Her body was all hunched up like a croquet hoop.
Really?
Of course, Dr. Oberwald said it was perfectly all right, but I must say it seemed dashed odd to me.
Yes, it was far from all right, I assure you.
And you started to say something else. What was it? Let me see. You said, when she was ill...
Oh, yes, that was a silly business. When she was ill, she thought she was in danger from poisoning, so she made Mrs. Reeves taste all her food and drink.
Did she really? Where is your grandmother's body now?
In the West Wing. The funeral's to be tomorrow morning.
I see. Where did Mrs. Reeves go?
I'm here on the balcony behind you, gentlemen, listening to your conversation with the greatest interest. Christopher, let me warn you. These men are the emissaries of the British government. They would stop at nothing to take the island over. These men are trying to influence you against me, against Reevy, who has looked after you ever since you were born, and who tries to protect you now that your grandmother has gone and you are alone.
Yes, I know, Reevy, but after all...
That is your pride as the head of the Horn family, the Seigneur of Garth. The Garth that I'm trying to save for you. This man is completely unscrupulous. He was about to accuse me of murder. Weren't you, Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
The thought had occurred to me, Mrs. Reeves.
Of course it had, because you wished to poison Christopher's mind against me. Well, Mr. Holmes, we have no police on the island of Garth. Our only law is the word of the Seigneur, and Christopher now holds that title. Seigneur, what do you say? Will you allow an Englishman to blind you by accusing me of being a murderess?
Mr. Holmes? Dr. Watson? I shall meet you at the ceremony tonight. Beyond that, I don't care to speak to you again. Good day.
A shame to spoil your plans, isn't it, Mr. Holmes?
Well, on the soul.
Magnificent, Watson. Magnificent. A murderess who seeks to defeat me by accusing herself. Superb. It's a new game, my dear fellow, and one that must be played to a finish.
We'll hear the rest of Dr. Watson's story in just a second, so I'm just going to remind you that right now is one time you'd really enjoy a glass of Petri California Port. You couldn't ask for a more delicious wine. Petri Port, with its deep, rich red color and its heart-of-the-grape flavor, is one of America's all-time favorite wines. Petri Port is wonderful after dinner and perfect to serve when company comes. Try it. But just remember that when you want the kind of port I'm talking about, you've got to make sure it's Petri Port, because all Petri wines are good wines. Dr. Watson, this is certainly an unusual story you're telling us tonight. What happened after Mrs. Reeves left you and Sherlock Holmes standing on the balcony?
We retired to our rooms and had a quiet and lonely lunch. Though the great man said little, I could see that he was deeply excited and that his keen brain was evolving some plan that would enable us to solve the mystery of Mrs. Horne's death. After lunch, we started to descend the stairs leading to the main hall of Garth Castle. As we did so, Holmes said...
Watson, we're in no danger ourselves. Mrs. Reeves knows that we're here as emissaries of the British government.
Yes, and if we didn't return with the butter within a few days, there'd be a British dreadnought here looking for us.
However, I am in danger of one of my worst defeats. My professional pride is piqued. If only I could... Watson.
Yes, Holmes?
If at any time today I slip you a note, don't read it at once, but... Here comes Mrs. Reeves. Precisely, Watson. I entirely agree. If I do not make the test on Mrs. Horne's body within 24 hours of her death, it will be useless. I must make it by 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Mr. Holmes.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Reeves.
I want to apologize for my behavior before lunch. I was intolerably rude.
Oh, please, no.
Whatever my quarrels may be with British politics, I at least owe to both of you the duties of hospitality.
That's very gracious of you, Mrs. Reeves. I wonder, would your hospitality also include a personally conducted tour of the subterranean caverns for which this island has become internationally famous?
Would they really interest you?
Well, I'm afraid that my friend and I won't have the time.
Oh, yes, not at all, Watson, not at all. We have plenty of time, as long as we're back here by 3 o'clock.
I'm sure Dr. Oberwald would be delighted to join us. He has made quite a study of the unique rock formation.
Oh, that's splendid. It should prove a most interesting excursion.
But, Holmes, why do we want to go stomping around a lot of damp and smelly caves?
Only exercise will do us good, old fellow. Will you lead the way, Mrs. Reeves? And please remember that it's most important that I return here...
I remember, Mr. Holmes. You must be back here by 3 o'clock. Mr. Holmes, and we shall reach the giant cavern.
Most interesting. Watson and Dr. Oberwald seem to have lagged behind us somewhat.
They will be here in a moment. There. This is the giant cavern.
Magnificent. Truly a miracle of nature. It's a natural submarine dry dock hewn out of the rocks.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. And in the olden days, only the smugglers who inhabited this island knew the entrance that leads to this cave. The first tenure of Garth found a cache of untold wealth hidden here.
Simply.
Silks, jewels. There are still the remains of some of the finest Calvados brandy stored among these rocks.
Indeed. An incomparable drink.
Would you care for some? It is our custom whenever visitors honor us with their presence to offer them a glass.
I should be delighted.
There is a natural shelf here in the rock. Perfect hiding place. There you are, Mr. Holmes. And here is a glass.
This is a rare privilege. I imagine that very few people have been offered it.
Only our most distinguished visitors, I assure you.
This cavern is completely inaccessible from the outer sea, I presume.
Completely. completely. Unless, of course, ships could swim under the sea.
Which, as you know as well as I, they can, Mrs. Reeves. Even outside the imaginings of Jules Verne.
Indeed. Would you care to explore a little deeper? The others will be with us soon.
Dr. Oberville, the others seem to be some way ahead of us.
Yes, they do, don't they, Doctor?
Holmes? Holmes, where are you?
Dear me, I'm afraid we cannot follow them.
What do you mean?
The next cavern is already cut off by the rising tide.
Great Scott, you mean that they're cut off?
I am afraid so. But do not worry here, Doctor. In a few hours, the tide will recede. They are in no danger. Just, shall I say, temporarily marooned.
I can't understand it. I'm getting confoundedly sleepy.
I'm so sorry. I'm afraid that we stayed here longer than I intended. I fear that we are cut off by the tides.
Cut off? For the tides?
We're in no danger. In a few hours, we should be able to return. But I'm afraid I cannot get you back at 3 o'clock, which was the time I promised.
But it's vital. Absolutely vital that I can get back. I'm so sleepy. But please, keep talking. I must keep awake.
Dr. Oberville, I must get to Sherlock Holmes at once.
I am sorry, Doctor, but we are not able to control the forces of nature. We cannot force the water to recede. Your friend is in no danger.
No, but he's got a most important test that he must make by 3 o'clock.
I am afraid that will be impossible.
I've got to do something. I should have come to these blasted caves in the first place. I don't know what on earth I ought to do. By Jove, that note that Holmes gave me, he told me to open it if... where did I put it? Here it is.
A note from Mr. Sherlock Holmes, eh?
Vital to make medical test. Great Scott, Dr. Overall, it's absolutely necessary for me to return to the castle at once.
Indeed. A note from Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and now it is most important that you return to the castle. No, my fine English friend. I am afraid I cannot allow you to.
I don't know how you propose to stop me, sir.
You see this revolver?
And do you see this stick?
I warn you, Herr Doctor.
Oh, no, you don't. I'm sorry you can't hear me, Dr. Overville, but when Sherlock Holmes gives me orders, I carry them out.
Mrs. Reeves, are we still trapped by the tide? Well, what time is it?
5 o'clock. I'm afraid that you'll be a trifle late for your important appointment. What a pity.
You deliberately trapped me here. You drugged the brandy and kept me a prisoner.
Did I? Now, why should I do that, Mr. Holmes?
Because you're greedy for power. That's obvious in your domination of that pleasant, though weak young man who is now Senor of Garth. I'm sure your beliefs would find support in certain ideologies now arising in Germany. Your choice of a German doctor as an accomplice in your plans would support that theory.
And what might my plans be?
I should say that you're determined to give Garth as a submarine base to Germany. With this island in their power, they could control the channel.
Very interesting. And I suppose, as well as being a spy, I'm responsible for Mrs. Horn's murder?
You and Dr. Oberwald between you? She was too strong for you. You had to get her out of the way. You probably made subtle attempts on her life at first, the origin of which you did not realize, but which caused her eventually to send for me. My arrival forced your hand, and so you and Dr. Oberwald resorted to the quite unsubtle expedient of poisoning her.
All pure supposition, Mr. Holmes. The only law on this island is Christopher Horn. Do you suppose he'll believe you?
No, I suppose he won't. You've outwitted me, Mrs. Reeves. I walked into your trap just as you intended me to.
Then in that case, you may collect your pound of butter tonight and return to the mainland tomorrow.
Mrs. Reeves, how much longer do we have to wait for the tide before we can make our way back to the castle?
We can leave now. We could have left at any time. There's another secret entrance that is above the tide level. I merely had to make you overstay the hour of your test. I could not risk Christopher's seeing definite proof. Come now. I shall lead you back. You fool.
Holmes, where have you been all this time?
Mind that, Watson. Did you open the note?
Yes?
Followed my instructions?
Yes, it was, as you suspected.
Thank heaven, old chap. Then now we can hoist her with our own petard. Here she comes.
I'm glad to see, gentlemen, that you have assembled here in the seigneur's room. The ceremony of presenting the butter traditionally takes place here. As soon as Christopher arrives, we will explain our customs in this matter. Dr. Watson, I trust that Herr Oberwald proved an interesting companion on your excursion this afternoon.
Yes, indeed, most interesting. We had a discussion of the relative merits of the walking stick versus the revolver. I think I was able to make my argument fairly convincing.
Where is Dr. Oberwald now?
I imagine he's lying down. He had all the symptoms of impending headache when I saw him last.
Why are you smiling, Mr. Holmes? What's been going on?
I'm afraid, Mrs. Reeves, that your plans have misfired rather badly. As soon as Mr. Horn arrives, I expect you will be under arrest for murder and high treason.
Christopher would never believe you.
Wouldn't I? Mrs. Reeves, you poisoned my grandmother.
Christopher, what lies have these men been telling you?
You're the one that's been telling me lies. I believed you when you said you'd been tasting the old lady's food. When Dr. Watson showed me the results of his test this afternoon, it was as clear as daylight.
But the test could prove nothing after 24 hours had passed. You said so yourself, Mr. Holmes.
A deliberate lie, Mrs. Reeves. I'm afraid that I invented that mythical 24-hour test. I knew that as soon as I mentioned it, you would attempt to prevent my carrying it out. So I was delighted when you fell into my trap. You thought that you were shanghaiing me, whereas in reality I was shanghaiing you. My job is to prove your guilt to the Senor. With your dominant presence away from the household, it was easy for Dr. Watson to make his test.
You devil. You knew all the time.
Well, of course I did. But I had to deceive you. I'm glad my performance was sufficiently convincing. By the way, Mrs. Reeves, the drugged brandy was dreadfully clumsy.
You didn't drink it home?
Well, of course I didn't. But it was very unflattering to me that Mrs. Reeves thought I might.
Mrs. Reeves, you realize what this means, don't you? I'm going to ask these gentlemen to take you and Dr. Oberwald back to the mainland with them tomorrow.
And stand trial in a British court? Never. I was born on the island of Garth. I have lived here all my life, and I shall die.
Hey, what are you up to? Stop her. She's going out on the balcony.
One day Garth will belong to Germany. One day the whole world will belong to Germany. Goodbye, you meddling fool. Goodbye.
Great Scott, she's gone. It must be a couple of 100 feet to the rocks below.
What a dreadful thing. I still can't believe she was a murderess and a traitor. Now, it's shocking.
A shabby finish to a shabby business. Mr. Horn, I suggest that we make sure Dr. Oberwald does not escape justice, and that we then perform the ritual presentation of the butter.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. The island of Garth will still pay tribute to England, and I think it always will.
Well, Doctor, that was some story. So Germany didn't get the island of Garth after all.
No, Mr. Bartell. In fact, in after years, the island proved to be an invaluable submarine base for England.
Say, what about the pound of butter? Did Holmes get it?
Oh, yes. But why are you so interested in the butter?
Are you kidding? In our house, butter is our second most favorite topic of conversation.
Your second most favorite? Well, what's your favorite topic of conversation?
Remember, you asked me. Petri wine.
Oh, as if I didn't know.
Doctor, that Petri wine is something to really talk about. You know, the Petri family has been making wine for generations. Why, the art of making fine wine is their heritage, handed down from father to son, from father to son. Believe me, when it comes to turning luscious, sun-ripened California grapes into fragrant, delicious wine, the Petri family really knows how. And they're proud of their wine, too. That's why the name Petri on a bottle of wine really means something. It's the personal assurance of the Petri family that every drop of that wine is good wine. It ought to be, because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Well, Dr. Watson, what new Sherlock Holmes adventure do you have lined up for us next week?
Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a story that took place on the Sussex Downs many, many years ago. It concerns a young girl, a painter in watercolors, and a very wise old lady. I call it The Adventure of the Living Doll.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Adventure of the Bruce Partington Plan. Music is by Dean Fosler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studio. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.